Hello everyone and welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series. I am your host for today. Yes, your host, you heard it right, Dia. And, well, since we're getting into the last bit of the second round robin, the stakes are climbing ever higher here in the professional Apex Legends leagues. Now, I wouldn't be able to tackle this kind of stuff alone, but I got on the show for a very specific reason, and it was to spend time with two of my favorite Brits. I want to welcome the first of them now, a Pathfinder main who is getting all the more excited in the recent weeks of the EMEA. Onset, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and the reason being, like you said, not only is Pathfinder starting to reappear, I'm very excited for the patch notes of recently of what's about to happen as well with Pathfinder, so a lot to look forward to there, but also a lot to look forward to today. We are over the halfway mark, right? We are getting into the business end of the season, and we're going to start talking a little bit about who's going to make it to LAN, because that's what this is all about. Of course, we have prize money, of course, there's placements, there's all that good stuff, but it's all about who makes it to LAN.
Yeah, match day 6, we've only got a few ones left to go, but I introduced Onset by his main, so it's only fair that I introduce our, I imagine, soon to be retiring from solo queue colleague. Gaskin, are you doing all right now that you've seen the patch notes?
It's tough, isn't it? It's tough for anyone who plays as Bloodhound, but maybe I'll stick through, who knows? But very excited for another day worth of competition. I think that EMEA has provided a lot of entertainment with different comps. We're not going to get, of course, those changes to the Legends for this weekend, but next weekend, I mean, there's going to be even more changes. I can't wait for it, dear.
And changes really are occurring not just in the standings, but in the league, in the teams, in the players. I want to talk about some of the most impactful changes that we'll see going into even today's matches, because we've had a whole team basically up and disappear on us, splitting into 3 different squads. I want to take a moment and talk about Passion. We've actually got a tweet from Zero Nothing to bring up on the topic. It's pretty straightforward. It's to the point. Passion is dead is perhaps a bit more of a flair for the dramatic than I would have gone for, but it certainly makes its mark. And Passion, the team, is in fact gone. Now, if you've been watching for a while, you'll probably be going, which one? This isn't Passion UA, this is just Passion, and their 3 players have gone their separate ways, but are still individually spreading their love of the game over at Blacklist International, over at Forbidden, and over at ExoClan. Now, Apex Legends is a pretty volatile game roster-wise. We see this happen with players, with teams a lot. And a lot of the time, there are questions. Was there bad blood? What was happening behind the scenes? We were fortunate enough to have all of those answered for us in a tweet from their team manager. I'm not going to read the whole thing for you. However, I would encourage you to go and check this out, as it does really tell a hopeful story of a team that supported each other all the way to play at the highest levels of Apex Legends, and all have received wonderful offers to go and play in teams that they respect, admire, and are excited about. There's no bad blood between these folks. It is all about playing the best Apex Legends possible. So let's talk a little bit about where they went, because with all these 3 players going in different directions, it certainly changed up the landscape of EMEA Pro League. Blacklist International has taken Micey out of the roster, putting in JMW from Passion. This should look good for Blacklist International, but I've said that about the past couple of thirds that they've had, so I keep wondering, is this third going to be the one to actually make it fit? Forbidden took out Plexes, replaced with Zero Nothing from Passion. Zero Nothing has actually been playing very, very well this season, putting up crazy numbers, so this could give Forbidden the edge they need. And over at ExoClan, they've been changing compositions. Why not change a player? Taking out Jens, putting in Fiuda, who's also been really remarkable for Passion. These are 3 teams that I would say, coming into this latter part of the split, do really need these changes, because it is at the point where if you're not in the top couple of squads, if you're not sure that you're going to LAN, let's start trying some things. We've even seen, as we said, some legends that are changing up. But let's talk about the teams that will be participating today. We've got them up. It is Groups B and Group C that will be playing during today's matches. And again, though you are seeing a couple of teams, or all the teams listed here, Passion, the one with no players underneath it, will not be playing. So when we get into lobby, don't worry, you haven't missed any action, but there really are 19 teams playing in today's lobby. Passion, in a way, I suppose, will be playing, but all on their respective teams. Because we're thinking about these teams, however, because these are the 20 playing today, I do want to draw this directly into a comparison with how many points they're going to be looking for throughout the rest of the season. We are blessed over here in competitive Apex Legends to have a very passionate community and a very passionate subreddit that has put together some great numbers for us. Go and check out the post by user Xander Commander on Reddit, as this has been incredibly helpful and will continue to be in contextualizing where our teams are. We've of course got their series played, that's how many match days they've played in. The projected points needed is on top of the score that they already have, what the expected amount that you would need to make it into LAN is. And of course, projected points needed per match does sort of speak for itself. You need a certain amount of points per match day. And this will give you an idea of who's really in the running to get to LAN. Right now, Game and Gladiators look like they're a lock-in, so do Alliance and Passion UA. Ninjas and Pajamas have sneaked their way up after a disastrous beginning to the season. And I'm even seeing names like DMS and ANC outplayed up here, which I can't lie, make me very happy. Let's take a look, however, at 11th through 20th. And this is where, Gaskin, I'm going to ask for your help in identifying some of the teams that we can be really looking at over today, the course of the next few weeks, who are the most pivotal here in the EMEA region.
Yeah, I think anyone who is down below a projected points needed per match, lower than 16, considering you get 16 points for 4th place. So that would mean you would need to get top 4 every single time you perform now for the rest of this split, which is very difficult to do, even though we have seen teams do it in the past. Are we going to see anyone achieve that? The only team that maybe I think could do that who's down here is Aurora. 19.4 points needed per match, though. We'd need to be seeing them finishing top 2 each time they perform, as they've already played 4 series here. Really hasn't been the season for Aurora that maybe we would expect. So that magic number of around 96 to guarantee yourself being at the playoffs is certainly going to be a difficult number to reach for a lot of these squads. But that number may not be, of course, the be-all and end-all. It can be a lot lower for the teams that actually do qualify for the playoffs. This is just to ensure that you put everything in your hands and don't rely on other teams to fail just to make sure you get to playoffs.
Limit the amount of variables that you really have to deal with, because the end of the split does get really hairy. It's difficult to succeed when everyone is trying their hardest to make big impacts, to make big performances. And speaking of those big performances, I do want to give you boys a moment to highlight some of the teams that you're looking forward to coming into today. Onset, we'll go to you first. Who are you feeling most passionate about?
Well, it's going to be Passion UA, and even though there was a lot of talk about Passion and how they unfortunately have kind of gone their separate ways, it's good news for us, because it means now when we say Passion in the lobby, you know exactly who we're talking about. It's these 3 gentlemen on your screen right now, and one of the reasons I want to talk about them a little bit is not only did they have a fantastic last game day where they came out on top, but I think it's the pickup in form, which is the talking point, because coming out of LAN, having qualified, gone through so much hard work to get there, we know the story of these 3 gentlemen. They're a little bit disappointed and felt that their performance was a little bit flat, and that felt like it carried over to the start of their season, which wasn't bad by any means, but maybe not up to the standards they wanted to set themselves. But the last game day was a special one. Storm Point was a very, very good turnaround for them when they put up a huge amount of points. A lot of it thanks to Watson and being able to play some very, very tight corners and command some space, and also a lot of it because of that man on your screen as well. He was the match day 4 MVP for EMEA when A and B went up against each other, and you can see some of the stats exactly why. Max Strafey with just shy of 5k damage, 12 kills as well. A lot of work done with the Kraber in one of those games as well. So he's a standout player, and it looks like Passion UA is starting to pick up form.
Now, usually, Mark, I would follow you and I would get a team to watch as well. But today I thought I would highlight and switch things up and give us 3 players to watch, because we are blessed to have 3 of the players with the highest average kills per game in the league right now, all competing today. We've got Blast, GG, they're currently in 2nd place. And of course, a large factor of that is down to the impressive start from Blast on mouse and keyboard as well. I will always give props to anyone who's up there in the slaying department in a statistic that has been dominated by controller players. And I have noticed that Blast bring a great calm to comms when we jump into listening, so expect GG to continue their momentum today. Now, speaking of calm comms, NIP are everything but. It's high-octane gameplay, loud, passionate, energetic, sometimes even mental comms, and Zayn has been an incredible addition to this team because amongst that chaos, he is a player who can lock in, he can thrive, and he is a player who is vital to their damage output. As long as he gets the call of who's where, who's weak, he will do the rest. If you put a Havoc in his hands, he could take on the world, and with NIP being in 7th position at the moment, they are in good form to get to playoffs. Now, it wouldn't be right to talk about the best fraggers in the region and not mention Effect. Ever since he burst onto the scene, he shook off the will he succeed, will he not succeed questions, and he instantly became a staple, dominating in close counter engagements. He also might want to take up F1 driving at some point with his Trident ability, as we just saw there. We have seen Effect 1v2, 1v3, and he is always entrusted to win any 1v1. While they find themselves in 5th place at the moment, coming off the back of a 1st place last weekend, Alliance have the opportunity to take the top spot here today, and of course, they are going to need Effect's firepower to get there. Now, this is how many kills they have achieved alongside the damage difference that they have and the average kills. Zayn with 37 kills right now, an average of 2.06. That is insane, if you ask me, dear.
It certainly is. The fact that he is basically doubling the damage differential of Effect, who's right behind him, is something that wows me. And Zayn really matching the freak of Nasky has made Ninjas in Pajamas look so exciting over the past couple of weeks. Now, fortunately, you at home have the opportunity to actually watch Zayn in action, watch Effect in action, watch Blaster Max Strafe in action, all, of course, powered by Face It Watch. I know you're probably catching us on Twitch or YouTube right now, but if you want a chance to balance what you see here with perhaps a map stream, perhaps a couple of player perspectives, you've got the opportunity to do that. I, for one, have been really overcome by Face It recently, as it's now got VODs available where you're able to watch things as they happened in real time. But don't wait for after the stream. Catch it right now, catch some of your favorite players, and you can do all of that at fce.gg/watchalgs. fce.gg/watchalgs. But speaking of some of my favorite ways to watch Apex Legends, it is always going to be when the two of you are talking over it. Onset and Gaskin, it is a pleasure to have you with us today, and I can't wait to listen to your voices as we get into match number 1.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I mean, very, very kind and warm-hearted Dia, as always. Very kind words. I will say, Dan, I feel extremely safe with Dia in the host seat. I don't know what it is about him. He just has this aura of kindness and love, and it's just set me up perfectly for a good day of action today.
I feel warm. I feel cozy. I feel like Dia sat by a campfire with a cup of tea, ready to introduce me to everything. It was perfect, but now I can't wait to get into the action. I can throw my tea away and start to maybe drink some energy drinks to get the energy on board here, Mark, because it's going to be another incredible day of action.
It certainly is. We'll keep the tea. You'll need the caffeine as we have a look at how things have changed a little bit when we talk about map schedules, because we've been starting on World's Edge for the first half of the season. Well, as you can see here, things have changed, everybody, and we are kicking things off on Storm Point. So a little bit of a change up to the action, what you're going to be seeing in the visuals, how the rotates, the maps, the POIs, they're going to be starting the conversations around Storm Point. Before, of course, at the back end of today, for 4, 5, and 6, we head back to World's Edge. Now, they're the maps. Now we get to talk POI draft down, and this is where you come into your own.
Yeah, usually when we used to talk about Storm Point or World's Edge first, it would be like, which team's good at Storm Point, which team is good at World's Edge. Now it is a lot about the POI draft. With Storm Point starting first, are you a team who prefers to get your points on the board early, or attempt to, or would you like to be chasing points in World's Edge? Because with the way that the POI draft works, you are usually going to get a good pick on one map and then a less good pick on the other map. Of course, if you are in the middle, you're probably going to get 2 average picks, so you might not have that same dilemma. Now we move over to the Storm Point picks first. Players are going to go with Lightning Rod, which has been a staple first pick alongside the Mill with 9 lives. So those two teams should be, in theory, 2 of the highest point scorers in the lobby, but we know that just having a good POI does not guarantee you points. You still have to play accordingly, and there are others who might disrupt you picking POIs that are close to them.
Yeah, one thing to note as well, you know, Passion aren't going to be in this lobby. It's 19 teams because they disbanded, of course, which kind of helps the people who are at the back end who kind of get shifted up a spot. An extra POI might be available that wouldn't have been had Passion been in the lobby. And as we move over to the second page, we'll talk about one of those teams because I want to kind of highlight Alliance. They didn't have a great pick in the draft. They were 35th and they've taken Trident, which is going to be right down at the bottom of this graphic. But Northpad is completely open as well. And I think seeing that Northpad was open, knowing that they could grab the Trident, go and loot the entire North area has given them, essentially, with the 35th pick, a pretty good POI to play for them, especially if we see some of those North zones that we have seen previously in and around where Trident actually is. So Alliance, even though they're pretty low down in the pick, I think we'll be pretty happy with how things have turned out.
Yeah, it's worth noting Alliance decided to choose a World's Edge POI as their first pick in 6th, and they've got Harvester, so they have got one of the better POIs, if not some consider the best aside from Sky West. So expect Alliance to be picking up points on World's Edge, but I completely agree with you. They found themselves with pretty lucky position because when you pick this late, often you might find yourself with something that's really a struggling POI. We've seen people go like crazy just to try and maybe even get into something that might find them points, or even just throwing it away, saying, actually, we recognize that Stormpoint is not going to be great here. Dev Coast often being the last pick that we see in Stormpoint, and it's going to be EXO that are down there. But Trident is a POI that you've just mentioned, gives them a lot of space, gives them a lot of room to breathe, especially with Northpad as well. So I'd say Alliance are in fine form here and a fine direction to carry on their position from last week where they were able to win the entire thing.
Yeah, I think it's an important game day for Alliance as well. It was a very, very slow start to the split for them, and I think sometimes they kind of twiddle with their compositions a little bit, so to speak. At the start of things, they have a little bit of theory craft session and maybe it doesn't work and they have to settle into something they feel a little bit more comfortable with. And now that Alliance have that match day win under their belts, I think that today is going to be the day maybe for Alliance to put the hammer down and really, really show what they are made of for the rest of this lobby. Just a little bit of a map overhead here on Stormpoint so that you can see where the teams are going to be landing down. But I think this is going to be a great day today. I really do. And it's now the period of experimentation is over for a lot of these teams. They'll be locked into their comps, how they want to play, how they want to rotate. But then they've got to keep in mind as well that things are going to be changing very soon with the patches coming out. So this is, I would say, the last opportunity to play with essentially a game of comfort, a day of comfort where you have the experience of what can happen in and around the map, and especially with how the Legends are going to play.
Yeah, we don't know necessarily how those comps are going to look after we get the changes with the patch notes that are coming into effect next week. So you are completely right. This is an opportunity now to make sure you put points on the board when it's something you are comfortable with and something you have practiced with, because everything could change going into next weekend's gameplay. So I'd certainly be thinking that these teams now have to put something on the board here. And you know what? With how people have been playing in EMEA, I'm always expecting entertainment, because we have seen maybe slightly different comps than North America. We have seen teams experimenting a bit, and those experiments have worked. We have seen crazy compositions. I know it was the Crazy Cats, the Cyber Cats, that came out on top with the kind of difficult and decision makings that you have to make when it comes to those compositions. Like, do you want to play something that doesn't give you a ring console, for example? Do you want to play something that doesn't give you a survey beacon? Well, Cybercats just tried to play something that gave you a little bit of everything, and I wonder whether EMEA, we're going to see more teams trying to do that, or if they're going to be sticking to the tried and tested comps that we always see.
Well, here we go then, everybody. The EMEA Pro League is back. The ALGS is back for another weekend of action, and we're on Stormpoint to kick things off. And I've got to say, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I was very comfortable with World's Edge, and now all of a sudden they change it up. You've only got to feel how the players are going to be feeling as well. And we talked about a lot, right? We talked about how some teams historically have played better on Stormpoint, but then you put into account that, you know, this is a POI draft. Maybe they're not going to get their POI they were comfortable with before. So, as always, we're going to be learning a lot in these first game or so. First 2 games of the day is usually a good way to indicate what teams are going to be looking strong. And already you can see that Blacklist International, with their new pickup, of course, are going to have a ring console to play with, so they're going to know exactly where that zone's going.
Yeah, and I think that as long as you have a ring console to work with, it makes you feel a lot more comfortable with the speed of your looting. But in terms of where we are heading, looks like we're going to be going down towards Jurassic Park and the surrounding areas of Ceto Station as well. Now look at this. There's already a watch party waiting to see whether maybe they can make something count here. Vexed on the push.
Yeah, great job from Vex doing the best Wig and Greek impression there, and now trying to move in themselves to clean up some damage, pick someone off who was being a little bit, shall we say, overextending in that circumstance. And Vex won this kill, and 9 damage with the Peacekeeper. 11's not great. 36 is enough to get it done, though. And now Vex, a very, very smart play for them to try and take this fight early, catch someone off guard, and that's exactly what they've done to Slayers.
Yeah, that's the downside of ExoClan being at Devastated Coast. You are vulnerable if a team decides they want to get aggressive onto you, because Devastated Coast doesn't necessarily have the same loot as other POIs. Also noticing Denze on the Pathfinder just to make your life a little bit better here, Mark.
I mean, I'm looking for a team with Pathy. Zip lines. One eye. Grapple and die. Anyway, that's enough of that. Vex got to be careful here, though, because the one thing about where we're fighting at the moment, right down to the southern side of the map at Devastated, is that extreme height building is very, very difficult to push. So Exo can kind of buy a little bit of time here. They can take a little bit of time to maybe reset, try and wait out this push and hope that a third party comes into the area to give them a little bit of help to get out of here. But the evac is one way to try and get up there. And now you've got Denze on the Pathfinder. Well, there's another way to get up here. Zip line up, try and get some damage down.
Yeah, against most teams, you'd probably feel safe on the height, but against the Pathfinder, sadly, it is not going to be as comfortable for you because people can just zip up behind you. Now, Vex, I expect them to be able to get the full wipe here. I would be surprised if Exo can survive, but I've seen Case Winnie do crazy things before, but it's not going to happen now. ExoClan will be eliminated. 18 squads now remain. You can also see in the kill feed, Faye just got a kill. 2 kills, in fact, it seems, so there's other fights happening around the map.
Yeah, there's a lot of it happening in and around Jurassic, and yes, indeed, that's where we're going to turn our attention as the full English. Well, they're feeling hungry at the start of today, and they're getting a couple of KP on the board as well. 18 squads remaining. Just remember that we did start this lobby, and will have this lobby with 19 teams today because of the disbandment of Passion. So 1 team eliminated, but also some bodies on the floor already here. Full English in a pretty good spot, just as to where this zone is going to go. Looks like most of the lobby is banking on it going towards Jurassic. And 1 team that's going to be in a very good spot is going to be ANC Outplayed, who I'm pretty sure did drop over here. I have to double check that themselves, but they had a ring console to play with as well, so they're going to have great pro for this zone.
So the Full English, who have not really had the best of starts so far to this season, and if the projected points needed per match are somewhat accurate from what we saw from Reddit as well, they'd need around 20 points per series. So that is going to be them having to get top 2 each time. But more likely, they could get a first and a third, for example, and it can even out. But yeah, there's a lot to do from the Full English. But the fact that it has gone to Jurassic, they have won the first fight, they are in a position where they could win this game. It's very early days, but certainly getting that confidence on board by winning that early engagement, because we have seen the Full English struggle in the early game in previous weeks. For example, when we saw them landing down towards stacks, losing that first fight, and then they weren't able to get any sort of thing on board. But everyone who is in the kind of central areas of the map of Storm Point have already found themselves within or around Jurassic Park. But then you've also got the late movers, Alliance that we spoke about earlier, dropping over towards Trident. They'll be arriving a lot later than everyone else.
One team that's had a little poke at the tunnel is going to be Passion UA. Danish are holding down the tunnel themselves. They are on the inside, whereas Passion UA were having a little look from the outside. And I want to get your opinion on this. Do we kind of navigate our way away from calling them Passion UA to Passion?
Oh, controversial,
I
folks.
don't think we do. We keep it consistent. Passion UA for life.
Saw someone out there. Stay focused.
I will say the tweet with Passion disbanding of saying Passion is dead is like something you would say after we just lost a 2v3
Look,
against
I need you
the
to
team.
lock in.
I just sometimes I'm distracted, all right? I should lock in. You are completely right. Gaming Gladiators, by the way, a team who I highlighted at the start because of Blast has just gone down. So I highlighted Blast, but they have made their rotation, but they found themselves in the thick of it here.
Yeah, they're going to be able to get the res at least as they get the bang ult down and the smoke. But the question is that team going to be able to push through? But a little bit of damage coming down is going to stop that and should allow at least a barrier to be popped. But it looks like that gap was closed. They ran through the bang ult. They're trying to take a little bit of damage and try and stop this reset. But looks like Passion UA at the moment, having popped the Bloodhound ult, have recognized that maybe the timing was a little bit off. But one thing they can do on this building, as we know, is siege from a lot of different angles. There's a lot of windows you can poke through, a lot of areas that you can get damage down before you kind of swarm and deathball to try and get that first knock. But it looks, to be honest, like GG have done a very, very good job of resetting here.
Yeah, GG reset. It's a risky move. It's a risky rotate, but when you find yourselves in one of these buildings, you are in a spot where you could pick up kills afterwards, as right, because they're going to get the information and the circle is going to be moving a little bit further south, but at least they can then stop those who are going to be arriving from the northeast. It's going to be players who are on the other side, Passion UA to the left of them, but I think Passion UA are going to be making a move into the circle, so it will allow GG to just focus on players and maybe take an isolated fight if they get the opportunity to do so.
Well, it looks like players are going to take the opportunity while the fight is kind of calming down a little bit and both teams decide to reset to hit the evac and try and get ahead of some of this traffic. It looks like GG want to play for the survey beacon, so they'll get a bit of information. And, well, it looks like NIP at the moment are finding that there's teams where they didn't expect them to be, trying to force their way through barometer at the moment, and there's a team up on height.
Yeah, it's 9 lives that are going to be there waiting for NIP and kind of frustrating them here. A huge thorn in the side. It is a full-on stick in your side at this point. It's not even just a thorn, and sadly for NIP, they need to find a way to remove it fast. Thorfinn, though, is taking a lot of damage, and it's a big nade to give NIP the chance to push.
That is a thread of the needle from the nade master himself. Nasky loves his nades, and we saw that last time that they played with a 9 that he threw onto the top of Skyhook, but for now, it looks like that nade has created the opening that they were so desperate for. They get that first kill, they get the finish as well, and not only do they get 1, it looks like they've got 2 as well. So NIP, Ninjas in Pajamas, well, they're looking pretty strong at the start today.
So how do you remove a thorn from your side? Not with tweezers, but with grenades is what I've just learned. Also, Nasky with nades is now something I want to see as a content piece. Actually, no, wait, no, I don't. That would be terrifying. Let's just keep it with cooking with Nasky. That is the safer approach, I think, for content pieces.
Cooking nades with Nasky? No, there's far too much paperwork to be done for this kind of content idea to come to light. Alliance, though, forcing their way into the zone outside of Jurassic at the moment and just kind of outside of Ceto. And this is an interesting side of the zone to play, actually. They're going to have to force their way up, you would imagine. The zone will probably move a little bit more towards Jurassic. But for now, Alliance already on purples. One of the benefits, of course, of landing over at Trident, having North Pad, to yourself is you can get that Trident, you can hit Ring Console and Survey, which I'm pretty sure they had both of over at North Pad. And then use that Trident to collect some Evo on your way through. So as far as fighting is concerned, they're going to be in a really, really good spot. And also, we're seeing Hackers on the Pathfinder again. It's a good day to be me. It's a good day to be me, man.
Day to be a Pathfinder main, eh?
Tears in my eyes.
I will say, Onset has stuck with Pathfinder through the rough times. And despite me constantly asking for him to change, he has always stayed on the Pathfinder.
There's no rough times. It's just a skill issue.
It definitely is, and you have always piloted him successfully, and I'm very proud of you. But I'm glad to see, you know, different compositions making their way in, and also knowing the patch notes that are coming in. Is it an idea for teams to maybe be playing a different comp? Ouch, not quite. Is it a chance for teams to maybe play comps as well that they are going to get used to, that they might try and use in future weeks as well?
Well, it's a question that...
Because there's another Pathfinder.
I was getting... It's a great day. Funk. Let's play Pathfinder. There's 3 in the lobby. Maybe we'll see even more of this next split. I'm being weird today, everyone. I'd like to apologize. I've had far too many coffees to kick the day off, but real question is, how many is too many? Well, I'll let you know at the end of the day, because I'm not going to stop. DMS. A little bit of damage coming in from them at the moment, but not enough to get that first knock, and now they've got to navigate through a fuse ult themselves. So Taskmaster trying to move out from this fight to be the center of gravity and try and be the one to capitalize onto the damage that came through. Now you're seeing the knuckle cluster, and now you're seeing the full send, and the poor old Pathfinder, well, forget about it. He's not poor now as he manages to get that first knock. DMS, though, Taskmaster, looks like a 1v1 for the win, and DMS will go down, and Vex will survive, and it's Denze once again, and the Pathfinder do some work, and it's even more kills at the start of this game today with Vex. A very good start for them.
Yeah, a really good start for them. They are pushing so well together and targeting everything as you would need to. I think there is clear comms from the IGL of when they start to make their push. And of course, the players who are getting the damage done, hitting their shots, which we always say is very important as well. Now, we will get a little bit more circle information, and I'll talk about it once we get there. For now, let's focus on rolling teams trying to take this fight, but it looks like they are going to just retreat for now, as a few other teams were having a look in this direction, and they don't really want to throw themselves into it, because I think it's 3D Max from a distance who are doing some damage here, which just means rolling teams can't force this fight just yet.
And one thing to note as well, that NIP just lost Nasky as well. He was finished off, and it's FA Kids who got that kill, and it was the Dan who took down Nasky. And if you were watching them 1v1 yesterday, well, it's kind of the story continuing. When it really matters is in a match day, and this time it's going to be Zidane who's going to come out on top with his hand raised. But we'll have to see if they can get him back in the game. Elsewhere, you can see that rolling teams are trying to watch their back and their next rotate at the moment. They've got the Watson fences down, which is going to secure their perimeter, but they're not going to be safe when that zone does close. And speaking of zone, Dan,
yeah,
it did pull away from Jurassic more towards the Ceto Station side of the map. So now Alliance are in one of the best spots that they could possibly ask for.
Yeah, we haven't seen this pull all season long. This is the first time when it's pulling towards Jurassic, it's then pulled away towards Ceto. So the kind of cut-off choke point, which Blacklist International are holding, is going to be a vital one for them, because every team in Jurassic are going to have to force themselves either through it or over it, which is going to offer a lot of KP potentially for Blacklist if they're able to get their shots on. Now, Gaming Gladiators, they are at 2 at the moment. They're on this northern side. They're being held out by Danish, so they've only got really one option, and that's to just try and fly past them. But sadly, as a 2, when you land here, you're probably going to be greeted by a full 3 somewhere, because there are not many positions on the map to be able to play with still 16 squads left.
Full English, you mentioned how they had a pretty good spot to start the game with off of the info they had. Well, like we mentioned, that's changed very, very quickly due to that zone pull. They don't have that information as yet. That's why they're trying to just kind of creep up a little bit, see if they can take a fight, and take a fight they will. Lifing will get the first knock, and now you can see they're trying to chase down these final couple of players to take out Vex, who have been, I would say, one of the most engaged teams at the start of this game. 9 Lives will be falling in the meantime, so another team has fallen out of the lobby. There's your map overhead to give you a lay of the land, and everybody, like you say, who was in and around Jurassic has to move now. Vex have fallen in the meantime, so happy KP to start the day, but not a happy placement.
Yeah, 3D Max currently taking this fight as well, and they've lost one, but there's still an opportunity here, especially with the damage coming out from the Vault here. And certainly when you are left in a position where one of your teammates has gone down, you have to try and fight hard. You can't really put your tail between your legs, but sadly for 3D Max, it looks like they are going to fall, and they will. 11 squads all of a sudden. So even though that wasn't the most vicious shift, because it's going to be the next circle, so many teams just went down because they were caught on the northern side. Now Sadell trying to survive with the cat wall that's gone down, and looks like they might get a chance to briefly reset, but NIP pushing it.
Yeah, this is a really, really strong push, and NIP have been holding all of these teams out as a duo. Zane takes a huge amount of damage, so Amphi's having to do what he can to support his teammate for long enough for him to get that battery off, but they see a 2v2 opportunity here, and Amphi does not need to be asked twice. It's more KP here for NIP, who take out the full English. The first knock came in, it's a 2v3, and NIP, even as a 2, managed to put some points on the board here.
Well, now they're going to have to try and hold in a 2 versus 3, because rolling teams have not only found them, but they got the scan on them, so they have the info that it's a 2, which will allow them to be more aggressive here. And even though I've seen NIP win 2v3s, maybe they are going to be helped by ANC Outplayed, who are in the center of Jurassic at the moment, kind of popping shots off towards rolling teams, which is stopping them in their tracks, and they're not able to be as aggressive as they wanted to.
You can also see the Catalyst is just slowing things down, but the off angle is good, and now they should be able to death ball in here and should be able to finish off the last remaining members of NIP. That's exactly what they do. Only Ekio has gone down. He'll be revived. There's a shield swap for him as well, but with 6 seconds left on this zone, they have to go, and they have to go now. Everyone will now know that this zone is not a Jurassic zone. It's exactly where Alliance find themselves.
Yeah, ANC, Danish, and rolling teams, even Forbidden have to move. I mean, Forbidden might be able to just slot themselves to the left side of that building and survive shortly. But Blacklist International, they are going to be the checkpoint, right? They are going to be the toll bridge, and people have to pay if they want to get past Blacklist at this point. Rats might be able to intercept and potentially fight against Alliance, but it's Alliance and FA Kids who hold some of the more powerful positions right now.
Yeah, Rats will be able to play the tree spot, so they'll be fine. Like you mentioned, Forbidden can move up to the tree spot on the right here and try and play that, but it looks like Danish are trying to beat them to it. Maybe rotate ahead of them and then take that fight. But like you mentioned, Blacklist International, any fight that takes place on this side of the wall is going to be looking over it, trying to pick up kill after kill. It's a real opportunity for them to do so. And now you're seeing 0-0 on his new squad. Try and force Forbidden up towards that tree spot where they'll be safe, and they'll be safe here for now, but rolling teams did manage to get ahead of them.
Yeah, Danish got absolutely obliterated, by the way. Rolling teams have managed to get to that fence line. ANC Outplayed have also found a spot. Rolling teams do have the ability to at least hold off Forbidden and ANC Outplayed, because Blacklist have pulled away a little bit here and not got too aggressive, maybe worried of those teams who are already on that Ceto side, shooting them in the back. And this is what you have to consider. Yes, you can be those who gatekeep and get kills, but you want to try and think about how you win this game from that position if you're Blacklist.
0-0 with some decent damage coming in from the Nemesis. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to force the team back. And I think they want to try and pick up these kills on this side, and then they have a slightly clearer path through. Of course, they're going to have to deal with Blacklist International once they do make that play, but like you say, they've got some issues of themselves on the Ceto side. So Forbidden have an opportunity here to take this fight. The question is, what ultimates do they have available to help them? You can see that Aku is hitting the ult excel at the moment to try and get that Bloodhound ult back. The only opportunity they really do have to do anything here is to fight, unless they do want to pop a late evac. And speaking of popping late evacs, it can work, but also it can cause some problems. But there might be a playable spot actually under Alliance here, under this building, which is exactly what the last player alive is going to try and play for. Thread himself under there, wait for these teams to fight and pick up some more KP, but it looks like NC outplayed, unfortunately, will be eliminated.
Tried, tested, did not work, sadly. Was not true to them. Forbidden now down to a 2. They're being held up by rolling teams. They have to try and be aggressive and take this fight. They've done good damage and they will win it, but now this is where Blacklist International could just pick them apart and bide their time, but maybe Rats could take advantage of this. Remember, Rats were on the northern side, and they might push down and take this position away from Blacklist.
Yeah, I really like this play from Blacklist, though. Not overextending at any point, just being patient, knowing that the only way for the remaining members of Forbidden to go is through that doorway. And when they come through, they're going to have 3 guns traced on them. It's just a case of picking up the KP, but you've got to do that first, and finally they do. They should be able to get the reset, but no, like you said, the worry was always there as FA Kids swoop in to clean up the remaining members. And now Forbidden down, Rats down, as Alliance just overextend a little bit, as 3 squads now remain to see if they can get some damage down before they try and take game number 1.
Alliance had eyes on Rats for that entire game, and as a duo, they were holding it out, and now Blacklist International get wiped, and we've got a straight 3v3. Alliance versus FA Kids, the 2 teams we mentioned in the better spots when we saw that zone shift over towards Ceto. But now FA Kids on the south, they have to fight uphill slightly here, and they're trying to make a move quickly. I love this. Try and take the height away from Alliance.
Yeah, they tried to take the height away from them, and they have done so. I also tried to just isolate those 2 players who were a little bit split from Hackis on the Pathfinder, who was probably thinking, hey, if you take damage, I can grapple into you. But losing the height is one thing, playing off this rock is another. And Zidane, who picks up one of the first kills of the game today, wants to pick up the last as well. He is flying in. Wow. He's playing with all sorts of confidence. They take the height.
They are fully on top of Alliance right now, and it's great damage in this fight.
Big damage coming in from Zidane. He should be able to get this knock. J Savage will help him out in that situation. A lucky down as well. And Hackis on the Pathfinder, well, he's going to use a zip. It's not his own, but he's made it a little bit more winnable here. He's got the spray with the Havoc, but it's still a 2v1 situation. FA Kids will take it. Hackis can't make the magic happen. Then it will be FA Kids who manage to take the height of Alliance in those final moments will be your champions at game number 1.
Wow, the aggression from Zidane there, the amount of space that he was able to take really opened up that fight for the FA Kids. Getting on top of that building just commands so much attention. You say, look, we are above you. You have to either stay inside and then we'll slowly surround you, or you're forced to peek. And when they did peek, Zidane was there waiting and shredded through those shields in a very impressive fashion. And FA Kids take a great game 1, but we also have to give props to Alliance. When we spoke about that POI draft and the position they found themselves in at Trident, the second to last pick on Storm Point, and they find themselves in second place in game 1. That's perfect for them.
Yeah, very good game for Alliance. I think they'll be a little bit frustrated with how that final moment went, considering that they all had red Evos, if I wasn't mistaken, and FA Kids certainly had some purples in amongst it, but I think it was the catwalk that changed the complexion, right? Because it forced the 2 players off of the height to slide back down to the building. And knowing there was that opportunity to take height, like you mentioned, Zidane didn't need to be asked twice. He knew that was a game-winning play to take the height away, get damage down, and then they managed to clutch up in the final moments there just to clean up the final pieces of Hackis. But yeah, it just shows, right? Red armor doesn't guarantee you a win, even though you have more HP. Sometimes it's about managing your abilities and managing the space in that final circle.
Yeah, and I think being able to be that aggressive and have that confidence in your team to back you up as well, you very easily could have seen players be that aggressive and then get punished for it, but he knew his teammates were very close behind. They were, of course, making that call, or someone made that call to all push together. Even if you are a little bit further ahead than everyone else, as long as you have the trust in your teammates to cover you, if someone peaks early, then you can make a play like that. So it just shows the chemistry of that squad and how well they're playing at the moment.
Also shows that Alliance form is still looking pretty good as well. We mentioned how they had a very good previous match day in comparison to maybe a very slow start to the split for them. A little bit of tinkering with the composition always happens with them, but when it is the business end of the season, it always feels like Alliance start to come good. And again, we talk about zone pulls down. It was another one that I think took a fair chunk of the lobby a little bit by surprise of how it shifted back towards the Ceto side.
Yeah, I was looking through the previous circles that have been around Jurassic, and we haven't seen that so far this season. So any similar circles from Zone 2 have always shifted towards Jurassic, so you can understand why most teams went for that prediction, went for central of Jurassic. But for the teams that arrived late, we mentioned it, Alliance were one of the last to move. They were playing edge. They didn't really have a choice. They kind of had to play any building that was offered to them. And it turns out it worked out for them. So sometimes playing edge, it can be a reward. We have seen teams who are on the edge in the late, they get punished because the heavy zone teams can take away a lot of those priority spots. But for Alliance, they take full advantage of being one of the later arrivals there.
Yeah, very, very impressive performance from both teams. And I'm going to say FA Kids look very, very good in that end game as well. And I've always been a big fan of Zidane and the way that he kind of impacts a lot of team fights. And I feel like sometimes when you go into game days, it feels like he's on I don't know what it is. He's on a different level for some reason. And it just feels like today, maybe it's only game one, of course, but he's looking very aggressive and looks to be hitting some extremely good shots as well. We'll have to find out if that continues in game number 2, as FA Kids will be the winners of game 1. But game number 2 is coming up just after this.
Welcome back, everyone, to ALGS match day number 6 here in EMEA. After game 1 got off to I was going to say explosive start, to a very downhill one in the best way for the free agent kids. Alliance managed to grab themselves a second place, and that's just the first of our maps on Stormpoint.
Yeah, a very exciting start, a interesting zone shift as well. I mean, it always is going to be the case when you get a zone shift that heavy, which teams benefit from it, which teams have predicted it, and which teams are just a little bit fortunate that they were last to the zone and they kind of had to go with a position that they found themselves in. One thing that I was impressed with both FA Kids and Alliance in that game is when that zone shift happened, they realized the commanding position they found themselves in, and they took that space. They spread themselves out so that they stopped anyone landing on them and taking a position that was nearby. Alliance as a 2 split up to dominate Rats, who were on the northern side, and the FA Kids then took the southern side and made sure that no one pushing through the Jurassic gate could actually take their position. And we found ourselves in a 3v3, and it was all down to the aggression from Zidane, especially with the Euros currently happening. Seeing a Zidane name popping up, it just feels right, you know. It feels like it's just playing to the current sporting world as well. A very impressive performance from them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really impressed me about this, you said we haven't seen this circle before during the course of this split. When we get rings like this, however, it really does demonstrate who is putting in a lot of time in scrims, who's studying rings, who's playing a lot of ranked, and you could see a lot of those zone predictions, even though we haven't seen it in ALGS, still be made by teams like Alliance, Free Agent Kids, and especially Blacklist International, even though we didn't see them in the real fight for the end game, because since they got wiped out by a nice push out of Free Agent Kids, I want to give credit where it's due. That was a great zone prediction by Blacklist, and had they been able to hold on to height, they very well could have done a lot more than 3rd or 4th place.
It is okay to call them FA Kids, by the way. I'm just going to let you know that. You've said Free Agent Kids every time, dear. We're okay to say FA Kids. We can shorten it. We can make your life easier, I promise.
That's true.
All right? Imagine if they're in the thick of it and you have to say Free Agent Kids every single time. Just going to save your tongue right here, right now, okay? FA Kids. Let's try it together. Ready? FA
Kids. FA Kids. We got it.
No, I was very impressed. I think that you're completely right that teams are going to be playing ranked, they're going to be playing scrims, they are going to be finding that position to just put themselves in a spot where we can find ourselves getting a good circle.
And we said that, you know, you can always tell when somebody's been putting in a lot of time when they're studying the game. You've got the opportunity to demonstrate your own study of the game by joining in on the Challenger Circuit. We've got Challenger Circuit number 2 finals coming up just this Monday. You can check those out at twitch.tv/versus_GG and another underscore. But you can not only watch Challenger Circuit number 2, you can actually join up to participate in future Challenger Circuits and eventually make your way to the Apex Legends Global Series Pro League. We've got several teams on stage now in EMEA, NA leagues all around the world that are making their way into top 10s, top 15s, and are doing so based off of their Challenger Circuit performances, Gaskin.
Challenger Circuit always provides entertainment, and we have seen teams break through from the Challenger Circuit and then find themselves at the tippy top of Pro League. So if that was something you want to find yourselves doing, then get involved in Challenger Circuit, and I can't wait to see who is the next rising star to come out of it.
I'm really remembering like Made in Heaven, or I suppose I know they've undergone a name change, a bit different, but that was the really big impressive story to me coming out of Split 1 playoffs, or into Split 1 playoffs, and they had a fantastic performance. Now as we get the chance to move into game number 2 of the day, we'll get a look at who can put up perhaps an equally, if not more impressive one during the course of this game. It is going to start pretty slow, but the FA Kids have started over here in Barometer, as they did last game. Didn't have ring console last time, still predicted the zone really well. Let's see if they can do it again.
Replicating success from game 1 to game 2 is always going to be difficult because Apex Legends is going to have different zones, right? But we have seen people find that same kind of success and that same kind of consistency by adapting and thinking on the fly. Now, one thing we have to give credit for those teams who are finding success at the moment during Pro League is those that can adapt. The teams that are struggling are those who cannot adapt. We have seen teams that are so used to being at a certain POI and rotating in a certain way, and they haven't been able to find that same form because they are just struggling to adapt to the same ways that others are. Now, circle-wise, I guess I said zones are going to be different. It is going to be a little bit different. It's not going to pull as far out to Cito this time, but it is still going to be predominantly in the Jurassic Park area. Maybe just a little bit north we might end up pulling. It could pull to the kind of southern side of the mountain within Jurassic Park, or it could pull on the northern side of Jurassic here. So this is going to be a difficult prediction for a lot of teams.
I'm definitely keeping my eyes on Lift, and I'll say I'm surprised even now to see Forbidden making a rotation into Jurassic when they could have stayed in Pylon and gotten a free scan for next ring. Now actually sitting in Jurassic, that's going to be much harder. I do value Zone 3, whether it be survey beacons, whether it be ring consoles, both of those can be incredibly valuable, and whoever's actually holding on to Pylon during the next zone close will get that advantage.
So Forbidden, who were in a good position in the previous game, because of course landing down here allowed them to play Jurassic, they're going to be one of the squads we have to keep our eye on for where they go, because having the ring console information now, are they going to be able to put themselves in a spot where they can get to the end game? Now, they're already being contested here, as all teams are trying to find this same spot and trying to find this same place to play in the early game.
Ult for ult is Forbidden, and forcing a cat wall by using their own Rolling Thunder. They still haven't managed to actually find purchase on the outside of this wall, and it might be in Forbidden's best interest to play a building, reset, wait for some of the cooldowns to come back. It's exactly what Aku goes for, but 0-0, still low, and finding it very difficult to escape on the immobile Caustic may be the one that struggles to rejoin with the team.
I think they're probably going to back off. Most of these fights shouldn't really happen. There is enough playable space where you don't really have to engage, and with the zone pulling in the way that it is not a dead cert of where this zone is going to be going. I don't think any team really has a proper idea of the final circle here, so the priority position they think they might be fighting for arguably could not even be a priority position. It may not be worth scrapping this hard, but the pro players are pro players for a reason, and if they believe that this is a position that they absolutely need, then that's when we'll start to see them commit to a fight.
I mean, Vex, just by sitting here in the open, are certainly taking a risk. It may not be a full commitment, but it is very easy to find poke onto teams that sit without a real building to cover them. 3D Max very much know that and move forward to abuse this position. As you said, everybody playing quite conservatively does mean that we're not getting a whole lot of kills going down just yet, but even as I say that, the proximity of teams is starting to cost us a few lives.
So ANC and Forbidden are both committing to Jurassic. There is a large portion of the circle that is not currently in Jurassic, which does worry me a little bit, as the Gaming Gladiators get a kill onto Bazaar here. And they are maybe going to continue with this aggression. They're holding the northeast side of this zone at the moment, and there's going to be a lot of teams coming through this kind of choke that will struggle. So you can pick up a lot of frags if you do find yourselves in an area like this, because as teams come sliding down the hill in the late game, you can pick them off. Even though we talk about the height of Storm Point and how it's so difficult to fight from low to up, you've also got to consider if you are arriving from high to low, you are sliding into danger so often.
Yes, especially on lift. Like, there's basically no cover when you move down towards these buildings, where we can realistically say the zone will be ending closer to. We're just not going up to the highest of high grounds here by Command Center. Things are more likely to bring us towards Jurassic. It's just a matter of by how much. It's for that reason that I like positions like those of Vex, who are able to play outside of the zone, or rather outside of where the center of zone should be. Problem is, they're currently fighting up against DMS. Neither of these teams really fond of coexisting with others or sharing the bounteous survey beacons.
Yeah, and both of them probably aware that at any point, the free agent kids that you call them could be arriving at any point from the southeast as well. So you don't really want to get involved in the fight knowing that there is a third party on the horizon, so you have to be careful and you kind of have to just back off from one another. And that is down to knowledge of who's dropping where as well. Even though we don't have the same kind of system now with POI draft, of course teams will have a list of who is dropping where, and you have to be aware of those squads arriving a little bit later, and they could really mess up your game if you are not careful. Now, a team that I do want to talk about and the position they find themselves in is Nine Lives, who are just in the kind of northern building and tunnel of Jurassic Park, and they could be in one of the priority positions for the late game as well.
Especially when you're playing the tunnel that you talk about. The nice thing about it is that you have access to either side of the ring, whichever way it pulls. You don't have a whole lot of cover when you exit the tunnel, but in this case, it looks even better because they don't have to make a decision. They can even gatekeep squads that make late rotates and punish, find KP, and then commit even later on. I'm liking their spot. I'm also liking Blacklist International. I think this is another great zone prediction out of them. It certainly proved to be so thus far. And it looks like the zone is going to continue pulling on top of them, perhaps on top of maybe Danish, Game and Gladiators.
Again, it's another zone shift away from Jurassic Park, and similarly to what we've seen so far in ALGS, a lot have pulled down to the southern side into Jurassic, but because there was so much coverage on the lift area, it was more likely to pull to the northern side, so that is why we have seen teams like Blacklist and Stay Healthy predict that and now find themselves in one of the better positions. As now Gaming Gladiators, we were speaking about this choke that they've been holding, and teams maybe arriving a little bit later. It's Passion UA here.
Light does a lot of damage right back, but it's a low to high ground fight. Can Light actually make this happen? Havoc and Hemlock in his hands and a bit of cover inside the smoke gives the Gaming Gladiators a chance to reset. Lufka gets taken down and Passion UA critically overextend. 3D Max do watch the fight happening, but it doesn't look like they're too keen on finding a third party against a terrifying performance from the Gaming Gladiators.
Yeah, I think 3D Max already recognizing that they are in a pretty good spot, having the Watson to be able to zone and take space here and just take as much of an opportunity to generate a position where you can command in the late game and force other teams to push you. So they don't need to push for that kill. They are already in a good spot. I like that two of them went to get a little bit aggressive to see if they could pick up any extra KP. But it is also very important you're aware when not to get too overzealous and push in as well. So 3D Max, they'll be good for now. Gaming Gladiators will survive and can hold that northeast side. But then it's Stay Healthy and Blacklist International who find themselves in center zone. Now, another area of contest right now is Cascade Falls. You've got NIP and Full English here. Full English holding out NIP, and Alliance are not far away. So this will certainly be an interesting engagement when it happens.
And if you're checking out the Face It Watch map stream, you'll know that with Alliance coming up behind these two teams, there's always the opportunity for yet another fight to break out. I like the proactive Bangalore ultimate out of Nasky. Could buy his team enough time to evac or just use the zip line off the evac to take height in this building, which is still technically in zone and could extend the fight. Nasky is farming damage. Does need to find an entrance into these doors somehow with just that little bit of space. A little bit of an oversight. Lipen goes down, Dell goes down, Faye is gone, and Full English are out. It is literally 2 inches of a difference, but that's all that Ninjas in Pajamas needed.
2 inches can make a big difference, and Ninjas in Pajamas will be very happy with that. And there is going to be conversations happening inside that team because not holding the door is very poor for you. It's very poor form allowing that gap. Now, Alliance, they are in a fantastic position to maybe jump in on this fight. Let's go into a listening and see how they do.
Okay.
That's not by my door, I guess. It can be.
Let's get back now. They're just inside.
It's a cutscene, yeah? Or Bang? Who is it?
Catalyst, yeah. I'm popping Excel
I think we
skirt
leave now.
It's pretty chill. I think we leave.
Yeah.
How do we leave, sir?
Just come up to roof, we zip away.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Smoke the window. Smoke the window when we go.
Yeah, I'm popping Excel, let me go.
Team up there, thing. They smoke team up there.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe the shelter for that one. There's not much we can
Just
do.
saying, as I said, this team is split holding this. They're building in front of us here.
Yeah.
Is there no tunnel? I don't see no tunnel.
There was team before.
There was that, I'm pretty sure.
There was team before, yeah.
I mean, we're kind of fucked here. Let's leave. Okay, listen, late game, like when this zone is closing, we can just evac from the roof here and we're gonna land in the water spot here. We play the tree and we play the bins. And then we can 3P backwards towards Jurassic.
Okay.
And it'll be fine. We're kind of stuck here otherwise. Yeah, we should be able to get an evac off.
Fighting up here a little bit or whatever that's what you're doing.
Listen, I'm gonna put an evac right here. I'm gonna put an evac right here when we fly.
Okay.
Should you do more middle roof so they don't shoot us really?
Can they?
Team's lying down here, by the way.
I could do it from here. I
Yeah.
guess.
I like the plan out of Alliance. It looks like it'll go well. Let's find out, because they themselves have acknowledged this is a tricky position, Gaskin.
It is a tricky position. I mean, choice words as well being used, but you've got to acknowledge when it's going to be a difficult game for you. And Alliance will be expecting that in Stormpoint, having the second to last pick with a POI that isn't necessarily one of the best, and with the zone moving central again, it is a slightly longer journey than maybe they would have expected. But having the Pathfinder does allow for rotations, but it looks like they might be getting involved in a fight instead, but we'll go back to that later as Exoclan are pushing in, and Slayer's doing a lot of damage right now.
With the Disruptors, he's really opened things up, but it's not enough. Exoclan turn around and just sweep them away like it never, or rather get swept away like it never happened. That is absolutely ridiculous. Alliance's rotation going a lot more smoothly than Exo's. They've made their way into dead center of the next ring pull. Got a few care package scans on the way. Their evos are looking good. Their position is looking even better, but they're gonna need to hang on to Bangalore smokes to cover crucial lines of sight.
Yeah, the damage reduction on the zip line proving to be vital for rotations across the board now from Pathfinder, and perhaps one of the reasons why we are seeing more Pathfinders crop up, especially here on Stormpoint. And now Alliance are theoretically in a very good position, right? But you are also under a lot of duress if teams start to push around you. There is a lot of angles you can be shot from, so you need to be big, you need to command space. As now, you see J Savage under a little bit of fire here. It's Vex on the other side, who are also taking some damage too.
Ninjas in Pajamas go down. It's 9 Lives that collect some of those kills. Vex making their move in, are getting picked off much like they took out X Clan. And while Denze's still alive, it seems to be a temporary status and one that is getting ever shorter. 3D Max have put out a lot of pressure from this position that they have held for so long, Gaskin.
Yeah, they have, but it's about where they go from here, because the two main buildings that are going to be within the final circle, they're already held at the moment, but elsewhere players, they're also in a little bit of a scrap. They've already lost one, but it looks like it's fine. It's 9 Lives who get taken out. Remember earlier we mentioned this position from 9 Lives that gave them the versatility to push north or south. Well, players said, in fact, we don't like you sitting there having that choice. We'll make the decision for you. And they pushed in, got aggressive, and they are rewarded for it. But now players have to try and rotate all the way around on the northern side in a very exposed area. And they are going to struggle, as are Danish, as are Rats, as are potentially Gaming Gladiators. Forbidden, FA Kids, 3D Max, all of these teams are going to have a tough move into this circle.
Hostile over there.
And I do wonder how those teams that are already in ring can navigate the squads that need to move towards them. We're actually watching through Calamitus's eyes Alliance move into an even more central position towards the next zone that could put them in a spot to take out Forbidden, to take out FA Kids, but it could just as well do the opposite and put Alliance in a position where they're taking too many engagements at once and have them giving up their spot.
Yeah, I wonder whether Alliance are going to say, all right, this is too difficult to try and play zone here. Maybe we hold out teams, get some kills first, then we can see how we are. Because if they can hold the entire south, there's still a chance that Alliance could win this game. But if they move too soon and then they try and take a spot and they just get absolutely griefed on their way, it's not really going to be a fun scenario for them. Now, Danish also in a position where they have to go from north to south. FA Kids going from south to north, though, and they're going up against 3D Max.
If only had a Skynet, it would look really good, but Izzadan doesn't have that height he had last game and goes out. FA Kids, having now fallen, open things up for Danish on the opposite side of ring to send it in, and 3D Max have got what looks like complete control over this gravity cannon. They've just got to fight the Gaming Gladiators coming from the north.
So Danish finally take the fight against players, but they've already lost one, but it's a great reply with the Havoc as well, and players will be eliminated.
Good
Danish come
Lord.
out on top, but they've, of course, lost a player on the way here, dear.
That was just a bit ridiculous. That's just a little too fast for these kills coming. The chaos is tangible in the lobby. The Danish had control of it for a moment. Looks like the gap is being closed, and with Fricks down, or rather Fricks, the last one left alive, in he swings, picking up no one. Unable to make the focus with the Havoc work, and opening things up for Rats, who now, down one member, have the chance to reset as a duo.
Rats, who previously were Kneecap, by the way, if you're wondering who on earth the Rats are. But they have found themselves in a lot of late positions so far in this series, getting into the final circle of match number 1, and it looks like they have an opportunity to do so here in match number 2. Now, they are very low down in the leaderboard, so they will really have to have incredible series from this point onwards, but at least there is some good signs since the name change is now 3D Max. We were in on them earlier, and they are still shredding, but they have lost one.
Devo on the other side of this does make it a scary engagement, but Alliance, even with a great weapon, cannot survive the push out of 3D Max, who were fortunate enough to get an early knock to start things off. This was a great play from 3D Max, clearing their south side, as they have no contest from the teams above them that have chosen to play the building.
So Blacklist International, the only team who are alone within one of these two buildings that we spoke of, but when you look at where that final circle is going to move into, Blacklist International would have to move before rolling teams or Gaming Gladiators or stay healthy. But because they're all on top of one another, they might get involved in a fight when that zone begins to move. And it's going to be about where Rats and 3D Max try and play here, because Rats could jump onto Blacklist International.
There are quite a few teams that, in this situation, it's more about which fight they commit to than whether they commit to a fight or not. The Gaming Gladiators up on high ground do have a little bit more wiggle room, and you can already see them watching now the interaction between Rats and Blacklist. 3D Max play on the low ground, and again, have a position that no one else is able to control. They're making great use of the Watson, and I have to say, I really like this position from 3D Max, Gaskin.
Yeah, it's a great spot, and I think they'll be pretty happy with it because everyone else is kind of on top of each other, and they've been able to walk in kind of unmatched and unseen, so they can take space with the Watson. They will have to walk into the circle and potentially be exposed from those teams in the buildings, but the good thing is, because there are so many teams in the buildings, they're going to be more aware of one another and more focused on one another, and I love this. They are taking as much space as possible.
Every time that EQ is able to walk up, he lays down a fence, gets them, I'll say semi-permanent, but still tangible control of that area. Blacklist on white shield, or rather on blue shields, will have to fight Rats on the outside, who do not have nearly the same problem. Full perks, full Evo even on Mania. And plenty with the turbocharged Havoc. Having Tolkien guard this angle. There's not a lot of ways for Blacklist to get out of here, but at the same time, a full-on 3v3 could be disastrous for both squads. In they go to take it. Tolkien makes the first swing up through the fences, doesn't get caught by the Watson traps, and instead, Rats disengage, lots of damage done.
I do love the fearless play we're seeing out of Rats, though. As I mentioned, quite low down on the leaderboards, and they are just trying to push the narrative of we have to have an incredible series here if we want to even have an opportunity, but we see the first kill has gone to Blacklist International, and now Rats, despite their aggression, might have to fight in a 2v3 here unless they get the chance to res.
Constantly denying this res. Can Blacklist International continue to do it? Rats take the high ground. They leave Mania for dead. It's them up against now Gaming Gladiators, who are across the way. Blacklist no longer really having angles. Tolkien drops back down. Rats could still win this. Uchako is down. It's a solo against Tolkien, and in the red, Blacklist International will go down. Rats sure to follow, however.
Yeah, Gaming Gladiators took advantage of that, and even though the 3v3 fight was isolated, as soon as the zone came in, it allowed Gaming Gladiators to get into a spot to join in, and now they hold one of the better positions. But it's 3D Max who are going to be their biggest concern, because 3D Max are watching all these three other teams now who all have to move out of the building at the same time. The only downside for 3D Max is if they get targeted. If all these teams within the building look south at the same time, 3D Max could be obliterated.
Rolling teams without the revved up Rampage, running a little bit low on ammo, don't have a lot of ways to fight up against 3D Max. Their nades aren't finding purchase because of this pylon. 3D Max sit back and control a lot of space. You just got to make sure no one walks up on you, and the Devo is going to make that easy work. Up on top, however, Gaming Gladiators have made the move. They're playing on top of the silo, picking up kills. Stay healthy, go down, and Gaming Gladiators are farming. Somehow 3D Max need to survive on low ground.
3D Max should still win from this position, though, because the other two teams are still scrapping, but we've got the height from Gaming Gladiators, which actually throw a spanner in the works, and now GG with a fantastic opportunity to win here.
It's just there are only two teams that can fight each other on low ground, and as rolling teams expire, Gaming Gladiators know what they gotta do. Marvelous play from them to take the control of the silo, the only team that could do it, and nobody else could do not but watch.
I think it was difficult for 3D Max because they weren't really able to stop Gaming Gladiators getting onto the height because they were being shot by the other teams arriving down low. Had they been able to look to height and maybe not been behind the box, they could have potentially stopped Gaming Gladiators dropping on that silo with so much confidence. But as soon as Gaming Gladiators got that silo, it was all she wrote, sadly.
I was really hesitant as to whether they would do it as well, because that spot is really vulnerable to things like grenades that would have completely obliterated the Gaming Gladiators, and the biggest part of it is really managing to stay relatively unseen. That they certainly did. 3D Max really only noticing them as we dropped into top 3.
Yeah, I think 3D Max were almost hoping that everyone else would look at one another within that building, but as the concern that I brought up. If everyone starts looking at 3D Max, they are forced to cower away and just say, all right, well, we'll leave it to you guys, which then gives the initiative to a team who is on hype, Gaming Gladiators, to then take a priority position off of them. Because once they can be on top and avoid all of that potential damage, then they're just going to be with a player advantage at that point in the game.
Now, while the end game may not have gone 3D Max's way, getting second place with the amount of kills they did and a great position is going to look really good on their resume overall, looking at today's match day. It is going to be a pretty high point game for them, and the Gaming Gladiators, of course, will take their points quite happily as well. Top 3 actually looking pretty stacked, although KP, not exactly the name of the game in buildings that were center zone. Let's take a look at the match results from last game. Not to this previous one, but match 1 instead, where the free agent kids, of FA kids, excuse me, ended up taking the win. 19 points and Alliance just behind them.
Yeah, not far behind. Good to look at the kills. We didn't get a chance to look at them after match 1, but I mean, plenty of points going around for FA Kids and Alliance, rewarded for their position in the first match, and also Rolling Teams getting 10 points on the board because of their kills. Difficult to find kills in some of these games. Full English, I'm impressed that they got 5 on the board. If they can consistently get good games in maybe positions that they are struggling with their rotations, then they can perhaps have a better game once they get to the final circle for a better zone that they have. Now, Vex also did the same thing, 6 kills on the board, find themselves in a pretty good spot, and I think they'll be happy with that as well.
Now, let's take a look at how this contrasts with match number 2, the match that we just witnessed. The Gaming Gladiators do manage to break the upper point threshold of game number 1, moving themselves to 22 points. It's not a massive, it's not an explosive game, but it is going to mean a lot for them in the terms of the standings. 3D Max managed with second place to keep themselves in the conversation, and I'm still noticing that Alliance, despite the fact that they weren't in the end game conversation, put up a respectable amount of points. A 6-point game is not a bad one, especially when you're already able to make your way to top 2.
Yeah, we are expecting Alliance to be getting more points on World's Edge when they have Harvester as their POI, not Trident here on Storm Point, which is one of the kind of less desired POIs, let's put it that way. Now, as the bottom 10 here, again, a few teams struggling in the early game. NIP getting 3 kills on the board and getting 4 points, but sadly, in their push to try and get into the zone, when Alliance retreated via the zip line, NIP were not able to have that same kind of ability to transfer from building to building, and they got deleted by the rest of the lobby.
I do want to take a look at the teams that were able to make that transfer, the team rather that was able to make that transfer. Gaming Gladiators played really well. Their macro, their micro, the ability to influence teams around them. Let's take a look at their stats from last game. As Gaskin, they were really quite close to actually going out for a second there, with a lot of teams sieging them from the north. Gaming Gladiators played a high-risk, high-reward position.
Yeah, I think Game Gladiators are a team who trust in their ability to fight, and you can put yourselves in those spots, which are a little bit more open, a little bit vulnerable, if you have the gun power and you have the chemistry to be able to take on teams, and also be able to reset quickly. I think resetting fast is, it's something that every pro team should be able to do at this point, but there are teams that do it better than others. It's allowing someone to maybe get a shield swap while someone else is still covering, rather than everyone dashing for a shield swap at the same time, which can often be people just thinking for themselves. If you can place one player who has a little bit extra health or shields to just hold off the others while the other two shield swap, they then switch and you get your shield swap after, it can make a big difference in those kind of areas.
And it certainly made a big difference in these first 2 games. Gaming Gladiators now sit just behind Alliance, who are in first with 24 points. Gaming Gladiators 23. FA Kids, not even that far behind. We really are that close in the first couple of games. No one team taking a massive lead, despite great play that we've seen in the first 2 games. Consistency still evading a lot of these squads. Like you're talking about, some teams may be looking forward to World's Edge as the singular position or the singular map where they'll be able to accumulate the most points, but a team like Vex is making just the cutoff into the top 10. You do need to climb as high as possible. These are the last couple of days, and this is certainly the last day of the second round robin. So we'll see what teams can do with their final map of that second round robin on Storm Point when we get back from a break.
Welcome back, everybody. 2 games done. 1 more to go here on Storm Point before we change things up and get a little bit funky over on World's Edge. But it's GG who take game number 2 of the day, Dan. Goodness me, a lot of words to get out very quickly, but a very impressive performance from them, taking that height at the end. Such an important decision for them to make, and then game kind of played out in front of them. Looked very easy as we take a look back.
Yeah, even just getting to that point by deleting the remainder of Blacklist International, etc., from the other building with position they found themselves in. But yeah, this was a risky move to make. You could see they had already lost 1 by that time, and had they been focused or a grenade had arrived, as Dia had mentioned, then it could have been very difficult for them. But as soon as they got to this position, the other teams had no real chance to stop them in this height. And sadly for 3D Max, who had commanded so much space on the southern side and looked to be the favorites to win that game, they couldn't stop the aggression that happened from the other teams, and they were too weak in the end when Gaming Gladiators did arrive, and they had to just succumb to 2nd place in the end, which they'll still be pretty happy with, but maybe a little bit frustrated that Gaming Gladiators were able to get that silo so comfortably.
Yeah, you can see 3D Max were kind of desperate to get that damage on the team behind the silo, and then maybe would have forced GG down from the height to try and pick up the KP. They're trying to force teams to play for second, essentially, and they ended up being the team that was forced upon by a team who was playing for second. So those little moments can really change the outcome of the game as to who comes second, third, and of course, who claims the champion banner at the end of things. But heading into game number 3 now, I think it sets us up very, very nicely, right? We've been talking about how EMEA and even North America the last time that we were on the cast was so close heading into game 5 and game 6. And at the moment, it's feeling pretty similar with that pattern.
Yeah, and at the start of the show, we were talking about how much points teams are going to need if they want to secure themselves playoffs, right? We're already starting to talk about that magic number. I want to reiterate that the points that are acquired at the end of the series, it is not the points that they currently have within this series. But of course, if you finish first, you get 25 and so forth. It is not the amount of points you are accumulating in these games, but those that are given at the end. So for those teams who need to average, like 20 points per series now, they need to be finishing essentially top 2 for the remainder of Pro League. So that is quite a task for sure.
Yeah, it certainly is. You don't really want to be putting your hedging your bets on a regional final as well, to put in like the monster kind of heroic rising up from the depths performance. It's a long way to go, of course, till we get there, but a lot of pressure will be on you if you do put yourself in that situation. GG, though, won't be feeling the pressure right now. Obviously won the last game in a very good position in the overall leaderboards as well. Second in the leaderboards today as well, and with a great POI to play from Storm Point here as well. You can see him all the way up at Zeus, one of the best ones. One of the early picks is always going to be the favored POI, so to speak, to play from, but a good POI for the zone and where we're going to be going is going to be for NIP. Cenote Cave is where we're going. We're moving away from the center of the map for the first time, and we're going out towards the edges.
Yeah, and this one often does shift all the way down towards Cenote as well. There is a small chance it could be on the northern side, which we have seen zone finishes there, or I've seen them within ranked and within scrims. Haven't seen it necessarily in ALGS this season, though. But you can see Stay Healthy on your screen making their rotation, and they are just going to take the northern side at the moment. Perhaps a little bit concerned about committing to Cenote straight away because NIP are going to be there, but now they've just dropped the balloon, you can see. So at evac tower, maybe they can take the spot off Cenote, because you have to remember, NIP don't have a ring console down there, so NIP don't yet know that it is pulling all the way down to the southwest.
And NIP might be in a bit of a sticky spot here. You can see, I think one player's on the Trident at the moment, or trying to grab the Trident to retreat, but they were very, very split for just a second there. I was wondering if they were going to take a lot of damage because, like you mentioned, Stay Healthy were flying in. ANC Outplayed have already arrived as well. 9 Lies are already there as well. And it looks like NIP have managed to, I was going to say, but NIP had managed to get back together. But Naski, unfortunately, was not invited to the trio and will be taken down. So the speed at which teams have rotated into Cenote here with that ring console information is why you're seeing Naski caught off guard. They had, like you say, no ring console information. They didn't know exactly where the zone is going to be going, or maybe they just took a little bit too long and overextended a little bit too much for loot that's caused them to now be in this horrible spot.
I think had the zone gone anywhere else, if it had gone a little bit further north and it wasn't such a heavy commit to Cenote, they would have been fine. But yeah, sadly, without the ring console, they weren't to know. And as soon as they had seen a team was moving very quickly to their POI, it was a little bit too late. They were too split, and it was a desperate scramble, but sadly, they couldn't get away. Now, whether they'll be able to get the banner of Naski, because I do see there is a respawn beacon available for NIP, Maybe they can get back up to a full 3, but at the moment, going to have to fight as a 2. Now, our previous winners, Gaming Gladiators, going to be approaching from the northeast. It's going to be a long old journey, most likely through Sito Station and then continuing to move southwest. But Gaming Gladiators, the way they fought in the previous game, still has me confident they can get to the late game here with the way that they have been approaching.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to go back and watch the VODs, of course, of the NIP decision. I wonder if they thought it was a mill zone, and maybe they were kind of... That's why they took so much space on their loot path, right? To just try and get everything they could before they made their move, and then they were caught a little bit off guard. But had to confirm that for sure. Maybe it was a wrong zone call. Maybe it was just unfortunate, and they weren't expecting the timing of other teams to arrive in the way that they did. But FA Kids, well... Been a pretty good day for them so far. 3rd place overall with 22 points on the board already, and just playing the eastern side at the moment, the building just outside of Barometer between Cenote as well. But it looks like they want to try and push forward a little bit and take one of these buildings, which are disappearing pretty quickly because a lot of teams, like we already know, are already there.
Yeah, we might get a few teams that now just have to play north of Cenote and hope for a desperate ring pull that most likely isn't going to happen with a zone like this that is so heavy to shift to the southwest. But I know we've seen a few odd pulls happen in weeks of late, so you never really know what scenario you're going to find yourself in. I like this move from FA Kids, though. One way of trying to avoid commotion is by taking a wide route around, and they will try and find themselves on the southern tip, but they are not the first team to do it. Blacklist International have beaten them to the punch here, using quicker means of travel, and now FA Kids are going to be held out by Blacklist.
Those guys have got some bouncy shoes. They certainly have moved in a little bit quicker, like you say, just beating them on that rotate. And you have to understand as well, FA Kids probably not wanting to take that fight based on the fact that they had 2 blues and a white. It's, you know, if you've got white armor, even early in the game, at any point in the game, if someone cracks that and gets that information, they're more than willing to be a little bit over aggressive to try and see if they can get that knock. But Vex, who are 9th overall, been very aggressive at the start of games so far and picked up some decent KP, but that's where most of their points have come so far. It seems like when we get towards that top 10, it's almost a fight too many for them, or maybe an ill-advised fight, maybe just an unfortunate position they find themselves in, but just struggling to force their way into that second part of the game at the moment, as NIP will be eliminated. 9 Lights get the info, probably scanned off of the Bloodhound of Vibes to get the info that that was a duo, and now not only did they get the KP, they probably get one of the best prio buildings that you could ask for as well.
Yeah, I think everyone will be happy with this far southwest building. Could still pull to one of the buildings just a little bit further north, but you put yourselves in a good spot, or you would have put yourselves in a good spot if you were the only team down here. I think the downside is 3 teams are now in this area, which is going to be difficult to poke out and get any extra damage, and you might just have to resort to holding this building until the end of the game, wait for that zone to move, but sometimes that's how you play a little bit of Apex. But as the zones shift and as the circle comes in, we get a little bit more information and confirmation that we will be going to Cenote Cave as first thought.
So Cenote is the place to be, as you can see on your map overhead now. NIP been eliminated. A very unfortunate game for them, and we talk about golden game opportunities, right? I mean, the heartbreak for them is no ring console. They didn't know it was going directly towards Cenote. They wouldn't have had the same info as some of the teams that were arriving, to get picked off, to be dropping at Cenote and be the first team eliminated. That's a heartbreaker, because they're the games you wish for, right? They're the ones where you kind of going, let's get a zone. It's been central zones. We've been struggling to fight our way in. If it comes to you and you drop in there and you get picked off that early, it's a real missed opportunity, because there's not too many games like that happen across a match day.
It also shows how difficult the first zone is to read without having a ring console to give you zone 2 information. Like, it's such a broad area, and it could finish in several different zones that you do kind of take a gamble and you take a punt on it, and they probably thought they were safe. Sadly, they were not. But now Alliance, who are going to be holding the northern side and have the chance to stop a lot of teams arriving. Both Rats and Gaming Gladiators are moving from mill. You can see them in their crosshair right now. And there is kills potentially on the board here for Alliance.
Just couldn't quite connect with the Sentinel shot. You could see that may have been a different situation, but it's GG who are actually rotating away from Rats, who are inside of the mill. So GG taking a wide kind of western swing through the egg buildings in towards Cenote. They will be safer for quite some time as well, even if they play outside of Cenote. But Alliance will be in a very similar position. I think, like you said, they're just trying to hold out for some KP at the moment, make sure their backs are clear. Other teams who are arriving a little bit late, you can see players, they're coming all the way down from the north. They're not even in zone yet. DMS are kind of just about arriving for now. But GG are winners, of course, of the previous game. Well, they're inside of Cenote, and they're in a pretty good spot for now. They have to kind of work a little bit harder later on in the game to force a spot and wait for a third-party opportunity, which is probably their best, I'd say, opportunity to get a little bit deeper into this zone. But 2 purples and a blue, they're pretty good for now.
Yeah, maybe they hope that someone jumps onto 3D Max and they can join that a little bit later. But there are buildings next to where 3D Max are residing that are open. It's just getting there. Like, sadly, you can think about, oh, well, look, there's a building. If you can hit a survey beacon, which, of course, we can see Gaming Gladiators do have the opportunity to hit said survey beacon, you could maybe take one of those buildings, but you could get focused so heavily from all those teams on the southwest that it might just be too much of a risk. Another option for GG is they could stay northern side and go for KP if they notice that there's a few teams that are a little bit open. But for rolling teams, they're currently being held out at Barometer by ExoClan. And this is always going to be one of those frustrating scenarios where you think you're going to be on a comfortable rotation because you are so late. And then you're like, why on earth is this team still here? How do we get past them here? And sometimes the answer is you just have to fight them.
Well, the zone's going to force them to make a decision. It looks like it's going to be an evac tower past them. This is a evac that won't be able to be shot down thanks to the cover that you can see. Actually, it's a little bit more vulnerable than I thought initially, but it looks like they're going to try and play towards where Full English are landing at the moment, or maybe they're going to try and play for the bridge position. Yeah, it's going to be the bridge instead. So a couple of shots being rained in from distance, but they should be safe-ish. Not as safe as I thought they would be, as it's Forbidden who poke from inside of the tunnel and managed to get the knock onto Denze. And I think it must have been a little bit of maybe broken communication. As you can see, the other 2 members of Vex landed together. A little bit of a strange one here. Rolling teams kind of as a duo inside of the bridge. It just seemed like they weren't quite sure where they wanted to play together. It was a little bit split.
It's the panic decision that you're forced into because you were being held out, and that's exactly what ExoClan would have wanted. But now rolling teams have been able to find themselves within this building and will get the damage to take this nut for now. And actually, I think they're going to be able to take almost entirely Vex down. Vex have lost 1, maybe lost 2, and there's other teams that are joining in. Players are not so far away at the same time, so it's good for now for rolling teams, but they're still going to have to keep moving west here.
You can see they got the info. They would have known that was a duo because of Denze going down on the Pathfinder. So they move in and Vex will be fully eliminated now. It'll be Babylon's the last player to go down. So we have 17 squads that's still in this lobby. Rolling teams, by the way, 4th place overall at the moment. Although with how tight the leaderboards are, that can change kill after kill, placement point after placement point, game after game at the moment. As ExoClan, who were inside a Barometer, now try and make their rotate. And they're going to try and maybe land up on this high ground and play underneath this big rock, but a little bit of a vulnerable position, excuse me, but a couple of smokes should keep them covered for now, as K-Swinny's on the Pathfinder as well. That means the zip line's going to get them into a safe spot, and it looks like they've actually made a really, really smart rotate here.
ExoClan, another team on the Pathfinder. A 20% pick rate coming into this game, by the way, for Pathfinder.
Only going one way.
So that is
increasing.
1 in 5 teams having a Pathfinder, and we haven't seen a pick rate like that for Pathfinder in quite some time, and it might only be going up. As you say, stonks are rising right now for the Pathy boys, and it has helped a lot of teams with their rotations, just being able to have that damage reduction on the zip line. Teams have struggled to be able to take people off of it and stop them from being able to move sometimes central zone. It really helps, of course, with the height difference as well in Storm Point at times, as the zone is continuing to trend towards Cenote and continuing to pull to the southwest. It isn't going as far southwest as where FA Kids found themselves, though. It is going a little bit more central than maybe they would have thought.
Well, Alliance trying to force their way into zone at the moment, but it's GG holding them out. You can see that Alliance did get the first knock onto Lufka, though, so Effect doing his job as the entry fragger on Bangalore. We said how he's one of those players to watch, one of the lead fraggers in EMEA at the moment. Well, he's picking up kill after kill at the moment, knock after knock, and finish after finish as well. And Alliance bully their way into zone from that northern side.
Yeah, bullying is the right word, and bullying is what you need to do sometimes when you find yourself in that position. You have to be aggressive and take advantage of, well, a composition that allows you to play in that manner as well. So Alliance, they will now hold the northern side. Their next point of contact is potentially either DMS, who are going to be a little bit just south of them, or they continue to play with that same aggression and take the fight against Rats, who are going to be to their east. But they have a little bit of time to decide. I'm sure as they get zone information now, they are going to be considering between themselves.
We can see that GG and Blast have managed to get away and at least survive for now, but you have to wonder how long he's going to be able to survive for. And speaking of survival, well, good luck, everybody. Maybe time to say a prayer, because nobody is inside of that zone. No buildings, I would say maybe even like the slimmest corner of 3D Max's building potentially might be in. But then again, leaving that building is going to be very, very tough. So it's going to be rock formations that you're looking for here. The geologists among us, me not one of them, are going to have to do a little bit of scouting to find the best rocks to play. But ExoClan are trying to force their way in at the moment, and they get that first knock. Forbidden will be eliminated in the meantime, as we now have 16 squads alive in this lobby.
Yeah, ExoClan just very aware of the other teams in the area, and they know they can't commit to this fight despite getting the first knock, because if they poke out too much, they are very exposed to other areas who are around them, other teams around them, excuse me. But now with the smokes going down, they can potentially take the unkillable Zip. But Swinny is not unkillable. Sadly, damage reduction does not save you entirely.
Yeah, I was going to say, you might have a thick jacket on with that damage reduction, but you still have to be able to get there, and ExoClan will not get there, as ANC outplayed will rip them off of that zip line. Maybe they were watching a little bit of last week and thinking they were a little bit more invincible than they thought, but you can see the play, you can see the potential for them, but unfortunately it wasn't there. But one thing they've done is left the zip line for someone else to use. We'll have to see if this time it works.
Well, the fact that they have a Dark Veil to go down afterwards gives them the chance to get cover, but I think they've just been obliterated as well. They've lost one. Trying to get the res, they're back up, and they do, in fact, stay healthy for now, and they can hold this southeast side, but they are going to be well aware that there's more teams to join them.
There's more arriving. Everybody sees the zipline, and I understand it. Okay, you see zipline, you hit zipline. GG will be eliminated in the meantime, as now we're going to see another team jump up onto this height, and this is going to be a huge point of contention, as Stay Healthy will be eliminated as well. This height is going to be one of the best positions for the endgame. The question is, how early do you go for it? Because the earlier you go for it, the more likely it is you take damage and someone tries to third, fourth party, and that's exactly what we are seeing now. We are down to 11 squads, as FA Kids will be eliminated in the meantime, as Alliance, well, they're in zone, but they don't have a lot of space to play.
God, this is so chaotic on the northeast side. Alliance just trying to find any sort of spot where they can stay alive for now, as there is also players, Passionue, Danish, all in the same area. Hackis has gone down. Unlucky looks to try and help, and they have just gone down to grenades and damage coming from a distance. Could they reset? They might get the chance to.
Passion U8 eliminated. Blacklist International looking to take this height that has been a little bit more valuable than I think everybody realized, because everybody wants a piece of this real estate, and they are going to get at least one of those kills. Now Full English will be eliminated, so 9 squads now remain, and all the loot you could possibly ask for is up on this high ground. Alliance eliminated as well, although I would say top 8 is a pretty good result for them, with a couple of KP from the position that they had to transfer from their drop spot over at the north side towards Northpad. So Rats, the only team at the moment who are safe inside of the next zone, but you can also see players, they've got full red evos. Danish trying to play underneath at the moment. Scans coming in everywhere, and it's just a really hectic feeling, kind of chaotic endgame.
Yeah, Rats, by the way, is just a solo. So yes, there is a team within zone, but it is a solo Rat, which is quite fitting, I must say. Players in Danish are currently squaring up against each other, but they have that rock formation to kind of dance around right now. ANC outplayed, and Blacklist International also could have a somewhat isolated fight. And then you've also got 3D Max and DMS on the northwest side, who might have an engagement as well. A team that might be able to go unnoticed is 9 Lies, if they can just walk their way into zone. But everyone is outside of the circle, apart from the solo Rats player right now. But you can see players will just be able to edge their way in, and they will be the first team within said zone.
Players also have the fuse as well, which is going to really help them from anyone who tries to move into open space underneath them and try and peek them. Just fire that knuckle cluster down, do damage, slow people down, and now you're going to see an opportunity to hit some real big damage. Players up on this high ground are just waiting for the opportunity, but don't take too much zone damage, because this might come back to bite you if you don't all push at the same time. Zanai's going to go down, and now players try and move in to clean up these final pieces, and will do, but is that going to cost them? Was that a little bit too aggressive?
Well, the solo from Rats suddenly comes into play and says, I'd like a little bite of this, but it doesn't quite work out. Rats get eliminated. Players will be able to hold off any remaining pieces from the other squads, and now they have the northeast side. 9 Lies have controlled the west, and again are in one of the better positions, whilst Blacklist International and Outplayed are still above one another, and now they get involved.
Yeah, this is going to be a big drop, a big fight, but this might open an opportunity here for 9 Lives to move in and get a couple of these KP. But Blacklist International absolutely wipe ANC outplay. Don't take any knocks, don't take too much damage, and now they can move away, reset, get that gen down, and think about their next play. It's a 3v3v3 here in our endgame. It's players versus Blacklist International and 9 Lives.
Wow, players are making a big move here. The evac tower sends them on top of Blacklist International. Yes, they took a lot of damage. You can see they're all chunked, but they had the time to do so, and now they have the height over Blacklist. But again, it's still advantage 9 Lives at the moment because they are isolated on that side. If they can go unseen, if they can force Blacklist and players to take this fight as they both move, then 9 Lives should be able to clean things up here.
So finally, a little moment to breathe, a little moment to get some oxygen back in the lungs as everybody who has fought their way into this zone has either succeeded or fallen. Players going to be smoked off by 9 Lives as well. And you have to wonder if 9 Lives are going to be in a position if they take this fight. Players of Blacklist International to third party efficiently. It looks like players are going to try and take this fight. A couple of knocks on either side. A finish comes in as well. Kazak looking for the armor swap. He will get the armor swap as well. And players still have 2 alive. But here come 9 Lives. This has surely got to be their game. But no. Orphan's gone down. Surely the swing will cement it. And yes, indeed, 9 Lives Esports, they pick their moment and they convert that game into a win.
Yeah, 9 Lives who had that western side just being able to take the building on the southwest and go unnoticed whilst everyone was moving amongst the chaos there. And having the catalyst was very important for them to make their rotation, and of course having the Bangalore as well to get the smokes so they couldn't be shot in that final moment. It's very easy if you are the one team on one side and there's 2 teams that are above and below each other. If you don't have the cover, they both will shoot at you before they start to get involved. But the fact that they had the smokes, they had the cover to kind of avoid everything, allowed them to force the other 2 teams to get into that engagement.
Yeah, very interesting game from the start to the finish. We mentioned how the game went right at the beginning for NIP, who will desperately want to have that game back. Unfortunately, it's gone and they don't get that opportunity. But pulling down to Sonote, dropping at Sonote, getting picked off by teams who are just rotating so quickly. And maybe an incorrect zone read. We'll have to get confirmation on that. We don't know, of course, so we haven't heard the comms. But an opportunity missed for them that is taken, unfortunately, by another team in the lobby. We have 3 different winners now, Dan, across 3 games. And once again, it's just showing, every single game in EMEA at the moment is very unpredictable as to who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, everyone is putting their best foot forward here in what is a very important week as well, because we have seen some teams that have already played 4 series now, and as we get through the second round of round robin, essentially, this is when you need to be putting yourselves above those teams that have already been able to play a game, so that when you get into the next round robin, you know where you lie, you know where you and what you need to do to be able to get to playoffs, as those numbers start to be in your favor when we talk about that magic number of how much you need. Yeah,
so I love the Sonote endgame where you see it pull away from a lot of the buildings and everyone's kind of forced to engage. It's like, oh, okay, everyone decides, apart from maybe 2 or 3 teams, we have to play for KP because there's no cover, right? There's no way to play for a spot in zone if everything is already taken and there's only 2 or 3 spots to play. So I think if you can kind of navigate, and I love the wrap from 9 Lives as well around the eastern side of Sonote. A lot of people will try and get in, play one of the buildings, obviously, but if you kind of think how much traffic is going to be coming from one side of the map in comparison to the other, with the amount of teams that have to move from north and from the east in towards Sonote, if you can win that one fight on the western side, then you're going to have everything in front of you and not have to worry too much about what's going in behind you. And 9 Lives do exactly that. It's 12 placement points for them, 8 kills overall and 20 points in total. Players just behind them as well. Good KP for them. 18 points overall. Blacklist International, our 3rd team in that 3v3v3. They will come out of that one with 14.
And you mentioned Alliance, by the way, 5 points on the board. I think it's important that we see the consistency from Alliance in these first 3 games, because even though they're not going to be completely up there in the overall standings, they do go into World's Edge with one of the best POIs, probably one of the 2 best POIs on World's Edge, so a good chance to catch everyone up, and just putting points on the board was important for them on Storm Point. That's going to be the same for a few teams here going into World's Edge. They're going to have a far better POI than they did in Storm Point, and we'll have to see whether they can make up for that. One of those teams is ExoClan, who were down at Devastated Coast for Storm Point, but now going into World's Edge are going to have one of the better positions for sure.
One team is feeling pretty good after 3 games of Storm Point is going to be Blacklist International. Sat at the top there, 17 placement points, 10 kills, and a new look lineup. Well, the success is already starting to come to the fore for them. Alliance just in behind them, but look how close it is. It is just a couple of points between every single team in the lobby at the moment. And Dia, this is shaping up to be an amazing second half as we head towards World's Edge.
And what Blacklist have been able to accomplish so far, they've got very low kills. Gaming Gladiators in 5th have the same amount, and then you've got to drop down all the way to 9th to find somebody else who is even in that range. The low amount of kills does signify one thing, that zone prediction has been super important for Blacklist over here on Stormpoint. But like you're talking about, this shift to World's Edge, while it's going to give strength to a lot of teams, is also going to disperse a lot of weakness depending on your play style. If you are someone like Blacklist International, you've been playing out of Checkpoint North for a while now, you've had priority on a lot of our zones, now we're looking at something a little bit different. Before we do, we have the chance to bring on a very special guest, as it is halftime, and we love to get a little bit of pro player opinion in between the games. I want to speak to somebody who has been on the forefront of innovating the meta here in EMEA. You know him, you love him. It's Cybercat's Elonzi. Welcome to the broadcast.
Yeah, hi.
Hello. I've been looking forward to having a member of Cybercats on for a while. However, you really made that almost impossible to avoid when we look at last week's games, because Cybercats were the talk of the town. You've done so by bringing out a lot of different compositions. I do want to showcase a clip, actually, of one of those very same compositions that really brought a lot of attention to the team. This is, of course, the big Pathfinder rotate that you guys can already tell at home has inspired a lot of teams during the course of this week. This is the dream they want to live out. This is what ExoClan was trying to do just last game, was rotate through the center of zone in the chaos with a Pathfinder zip line. And it's this kind of innovation with things like Gibraltar and Caustic, big boys that not a whole lot of other people are running, that has really made Cybercats a team to take note of. I'm also noticing that you're running things like Mad Maggie, like Wraith, and then swapping things out for the Pathfinder. You actually change compositions a lot, even within the same set of games, even within the same map. I want to ask you, how is it that you're able to navigate changing compositions so often? Why would you do that in the same set of games, and how has it benefited you?
So most of the time, Ranches is like responsible for the picks, but Ranch and Cliff are like filling the lobby so hard, like so they can pick any legend that they think that is like the best right now. So sometimes we just pick Maggie or GB or whatever. It's just they just know what to do.
Now, I was going to jump in and ask you a little bit about some of the conversations that happen around, you know, the compositions you're going to play, because it feels like after a few weeks of Pro League, we get the set meta, and it's been, you know, Bloodhound, it's been Bangalore, and it's been +1 for the majority of teams because of how they interact together. The strengths kind of mirror, and the weaknesses mirror a lot of the other teams. And I want to kind of get the behind the scenes of the conversations you guys have about how you come up with these compositions and how you think this is going to be an impact in this lobby, knowing what everyone else is going to play.
So the main idea of the pick of the Gibby, Pathfinder, and Caustic is that you're getting the scan of the ring and scan of the people at the same time, and you can easily rotate with the zipline and stabilize with the Gibby bubble, and so we just felt like it was the right time to pick it.
Well, you certainly are entertaining us, and every time you're on my screen, I'm always excited with what composition you are going to be playing. Now, you've been watching the first 3 maps that we've had on our screen so far today in EMEA, and I'd love to get your thoughts on each one of the final circles and how they played out. Match number 1 ended towards Jurassic Park, but then shifted away towards Ceto Station. What did you see here in map number 1?
So basically, FA Kids took a lot of space on the right, and they had a huge high ground with the Bloodhound ults and everything. Unfortunately, Effect almost killed 2 of them on the roof, but there was no way they could win it.
Yeah, it's very difficult when a team takes high ground like they did, and I loved the aggression from Zidane to put himself in this position. And once they had got the initial damage, of course, they were able to follow up and get the final kills and clean up the map 1 victory. Now, map number 2, we went to Jurassic Park again, but it pulled a little bit further north. Did you like this position from Gaming Gladiators, getting onto the silo?
Yeah, it was a very nice position to dodge all of the fights on the low ground. And unfortunately, all of the teams on the low ground didn't have the grenades or anything to kill them. So it was the easy win for them.
It is as simple as that sometimes, isn't it? When you get that high ground, it becomes an easy win when no one else can really stop you from being in this position, and it was just a matter of cleaning up. But getting into that position was where Gaming Gladiators were so impressive. Now, in map 3, we went all the way down to the southwest to Cenote between these rocks. How difficult is a final circle like this with so much open space?
It was actually difficult for the teams on the opposite side because they were playing on each other, so they were forced to fight, and Nine Lives had no other option to other to third party them.
It was a very funny way to conclude this game as well, since Nine Lives really did just walk in and pick up a few people. Realistically, looking at this game, I had a really fun time watching how EXO influenced it with the singular zipline up onto high ground, and you can already tell you guys are making an impact with the Pathfinder. A lot of other teams are starting to look at this pick, and I really appreciate how much you have inspired the course of this region, and perhaps even when we look at international competition, we could see Cybercats at LAN.
Yeah, hopefully our ideas with the new meta and everything will get us to LAN, and we will succeed.
That would be really exciting because we do love innovators like you guys. I do want to shout out as well. Thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast. If you guys at home liked Elonzi and want to follow more, as I imagine you did, you can follow them at Elonzi was taken. And of course, you can keep up with Cybercats at CybercatsGG. Thank you, Elonzi, for joining us for halftime.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right. It's time to get a move on because the players are impatient. They've heard from Elonzi. Yes, they finally have their Pathfinder Gospel, but we know a lot of people behind the scenes are really waiting for the next game to kick off, and that means that match 4 should be starting off soon. That's what we've got to look forward to next, and the transfer to World's Edge complete. Maybe we'll see a little bit of Gibraltar coming back. Maybe we'll see a little bit of Gibby. Gaskin, you won't be around to see it, as I'm going to send you on break. You've been working too hard, and I'm going to steal Onset away for game number 4.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, Onset. We're gonna start just saying that he's not here. He's not here anymore.
He's
and
still
we're
there,
gonna
by the way, everyone. He never leaves. Like, you think you've got rid of him before you know it. He'll go, "Hey, was he talking about me?" And you're like, "Oh, there he is." He just appears from nowhere. But I mean, it's great to hear from Alonzi, right? I think it's always interesting to hear some of the thoughts behind some of the compositions and some of the decisions that our players make, because you're kind of looking at it and you're going, "This is really out of nowhere." All of a sudden, it's like, where has this composition come from? And then once you actually hear like the breakdown a little bit of it and the ideas behind it, things start to add up and make sense. And when you see the success behind it, it always inspires someone else to try something. So yeah, great to hear from Alonzi. Very excited to see what they can do in the rest of the split.
Well, I do wonder as well how much change they'll inspire across the league. We already saw with things like the Gibraltar maybe not being picked up as much as the Pathfinder. How much space is there for that both now and post-patch? Because Onset, we're not going to talk about it too much, but we are going to be changing a little bit of the meta when it comes to Tuesday. So how much innovation that'll free up for the rest of our teams is something that we can really look forward to. I do want to take a look at the POIs that were drafted moving into World's Edge, as that's going to be very important. It's going to change a lot of folks' chances. And of course, we're starting things off with first pick, EXO, Sky West. Tale as old as time. EXO finally coming back home.
They probably got there and they goes, who changed the wallpaper? Because we haven't been here for quite some time. But one pick I want to kind of highlight again, and I know I've talked about Alliance and their pick over on Stormpoint, but Alliance going for Harvester as pick 2 is somewhat surprising for me, because doesn't have the greatest loot pool, I would say, for a team who historically likes to loot up and be strong come the end game and play from the edge. More of a central POI, which maybe is thinking about a little bit of a change of approach for Alliance. They want to start more in the center of the map. They want to use the Pathfinder to make some quick rotates, and maybe that's down to the fact that some of these zones have been a little bit unpredictable. They want to see if they can get a really good early spot and play from there. Use that Pathfinder a little bit later on if they have to make a little bit of a stranger rotate towards one of those strange zone pools. But it's an interesting pick for me, because historically Alliance have not played from center POI, so something to keep an eye on for sure.
And I can't help but wonder whether they're going Harvester to at least have equal access to all the zones, because one of the things the Alliance was really known for was playing out of a spot like Thermal Station, where they basically have negative access to almost every zone and are always playing from edge. Perhaps with Harvester you can do that more consistently, you can find better spots. There's a bit of mystery to this, but it's a mystery that will be shortly resolved. I am taking a look at a couple of other notable POIs. 3D Max have Monument, but they also have Fragment as a result of no teams being there, and the same thing can be said for the FA Kids, and potentially Rats as one of those two teams could inherit the loot over by Dome.
Yeah, I will say as well, NIP continuing their form and just saying, we're going Siphon. If you want to come with us, we'll fight you. Which means that they just get Siphon. I mean, it's a good idea, isn't it? It's kind of one of those, it's like, it's one of those like chaotic decisions, which I imagine Nasky is heavily influenced. It's like, okay, we're just going to pick this every time, and regardless of what side we drop, and if you want to come, then you're more than welcome, but we could ruin your game. As well as our own. So I kind of like it.
I'm gonna bet, actually, just knowing the energy on that team, that they're actually kind of sad that nobody's actually gone over and contested them yet. Like, this is a team that largely is built for that kind of chaos, for thriving and when they need to contest, when they need to find these really awkward fights. In fact, these first couple of games have been pretty non-action for them because they've been very standard for the rest of the lobby.
Yeah, something to note here as well is looking at the Alliance composition, it looks like a move away from Pathfinder onto Catalyst for this map. So you can expect, of course, a little bit of a change up when it comes to compositions headed into World's Edge. I would say historically more playable areas for a lot of teams, which allows quicker rotates, allows defensive legends to have a little bit more value in your composition and to hold down those spots for the end game. But always interesting to see if we have any surprises. I did see the Vex was still running the Pathfinder, if I wasn't mistaken. But here we go then, dear. We're into game number 4, and welcome everybody back to World's Edge. Unfortunately for Jay Hanzo, it looks like he might have to reconnect beforehand.
Yeah, seems to have dropped off the map a little further away, perhaps getting oobed early on. So 9 Lives will be set behind in their rotation, sitting at tree for a little while, and hopefully being able to recover the banner, perhaps with a creative use of an evac tower. Their movement, however, will be largely up towards the north, as it does seem that you'll have to pass through Siphon. Not something that 9 Lives have access to in terms of where that future zone will go. They haven't quite hit the ring console yet, and will need to move to make use of one.
Well, speaking of zone, speaking of console, speaking of all that good stuff and where this end game is likely to be going, I would put some pretty good money on it heading towards the respawn village just outside of Fragment, and Overlook teams being very happy that they can walk down that big old hill and watch the rest of the lobby come towards them. And if you're wondering who that team is, so the team is at the top of the pile right now. Blacklist International are going to be smiling because that is a very, very good zone for them. Not only as well, you can see they have a couple of harvesters to play with as well to pick up some Evo, but I'm also hearing in my ears, unfortunately, that we might be restarting this lobby. So bad news for Blacklist International, a zone that they might have been very happy with. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to play it out here, dear.
Blacklist fans falling to their knees in a Walmart. Meanwhile, 9 Lives fans are just elated because this was a really difficult start of game for a team like 9 Lives. So I'm happy to see them getting another chance to actually play things out perhaps a little bit more regularly. We'll have the chance to figure out where this next ring is going. And I will say it did seem a little like there was a little bit too much plot armor on Blacklist. They're having a zone on them at Overlook. It's poor taste.
Yeah, I mean, we know all about those script writers. We'll have to check in with them and see what the plan is for the rest of it. But, I mean, it gives us a little bit more time to just talk about POI, right? It gives us a chance to talk about teams who really need to produce a little bit here on World's Edge because their point tally is just, I mean, keep in mind how tight it is, right? And how one game can completely change things. And I think going into World's Edge, knowing that and keeping it in the back of your mind, even if you haven't had the greatest of storm points, if you're starting off here on World's Edge with one of the strongest POIs like your Exo Clan, Full English, 3D Max rolling teams, and you've got one of those top 5 picks of POI, you know that one big game here can put you up into the top 10, top 5, top 3, top 1 if you can convert. So I think for a lot of the teams who've just seen that restart, I think they're going to be pretty happy that the zone's pulled away from Blacklist International, has been kind of ripped away that opportunity, and they're going to have to rethink their next approach.
Yeah, but we're still early on yet into the day. I mean, first 3 games seem like a lot, but if you can have a good performance on World's Edge, like you said, you can start moving yourself into the points that, as we touched on at the start of the broadcast, are really necessary. I do want to take a look forward into the future, however. We did tease the patch notes earlier. I want to take a hard look at them now that we've got a little bit of time, because Bangalore Bloodhound have been staples of the meta for such a long time here in the ALGS, and now onset that might finally change.
Yeah, I think one thing to note about the change, one of the changes to Bangalore, is there's been some feedback, of course, about, you know, when you're watching the game, when you're playing the game, sometimes visual impairment becomes something which is very difficult to overcome in certain situations with a lot of the legends that are being heavily picked at the moment in the competitive landscape. So one thing that's been done, and you can see from the dev note here, one of the things from the smoke launcher, the smoke grenades that go out there, basically are the go-to for Bangalore, right, is that all the players within the smoke will now have a white highlight visible to other players in the smoke within 20 meters. So you can't just sit in that smoke anymore and have a team next to you, reset nice and comfortably. You're going to be able to fight in and around those smokes. So it kind of takes a little bit of strength away from Bangalore. And you can also see from the dev note, the highlight is not visible from outside of the smoke. You have to be in it. So you have to be a little bit aggressive. You have to get up in the face of a team. And if you hear that red's going off, I'm very interested to see if teams are going to be more willing now, if Bangalore is still picked, to push through those smokes and try and take advantage of those audio cues that come through.
I expect they would, and honestly, this changes the identity of Bangalore to more of the assault class catalyst, where it is more about blocking off lines of sight for your team and less about smoking just the team in front of you for an inherent advantage in the fight, to inject a little bit of chaos. Now you do have to think critically about whether other teams will have access to join into the smoke and join into the fight, where they'll no longer really be disadvantaged to do so. Let's talk about the other half of the duo, however, because it's Bangalore and Bloodhound, and Bloodhound's also changed, and Bloodhound has changed quite a bit. They still have preserved a lot of the identity of Bloodhound, still tracking, still keeping eyes on people who are quite far away, but the interaction with smoke no longer there on the ultimate.
Yeah, I think it's a really important one, because there's a lot of talk about, you know, Bloodhound and the smoke interaction, and how it almost feels like there's no counter to it, right? Unless you run Bloodhound yourself to scan back, to force the team to get kind of back up and think, hey, we have this knowledge as you do as well. But when you come to Beast of the Hunt and you jump into that ult, there's no real counterplay to it unless you pop ult yourself. And if you don't have it available, then even if you try and poke to get an angle, that Bloodhound is going to be able to see you through that smoke in the ult previously. And it really is kind of, like I say, very difficult to counter with anything in a composition. So you can see here that the dev note is, for the removal of threat vision through the smoke, Bloodhound would need to rely on their tac scan like other recon legends. So now you have to wait for that scan to make the play through smoke if you wanted to. And this should remove the necessity for Bangalore and Bloodhound to pair together and allow for some new roster compositions to form in its wake. So I think you're quite right. We're talking about this partnership, how Bloodhound and Bangalore have been synonymous with quite, I would say, a stint of time. One does not go without the other, it feels like. And now you're going to see that little change, which has such a big impact on how these two legends interact with each other.
I mean, it's looking like things can change entirely. Now, this is changing just the singular ultimate, but the perks have also swapped around as well, just to reflect a little bit of that. Of course, when you are hitting blue armors, you've now got a small nerf to Bloodhound and the ability to get ult back nearly as quickly, changing this from being an ult reliant legend and again back into the recon. Whereas when you hit level 3, you now have the opportunity to pick up a little bit less cooldown on your tactical, especially when finding ravens. And fortunately enough, ravens are now no longer limited by how many teams are in proximity to you. So, Onset, you can keep getting ravens even into the end game.
Yeah, which is obviously something that teams are going to have to decide what they feel is the most valuable when it comes to that level 3 upgrade. If, of course, Bloodhound continues to be a part of these compositions. So there's a lot of conversations to be had, of course, and I'd point people in the direction of people like Hodzik, who's put out, his reactions to some of the patch notes and the changes. Likes of Raven, of course, have talked about it as well. Keep your eyes on some of these coaches, their YouTubes and their Twitch channels to give you a little bit of how they're reading things before we actually see the implementation of it in game. It's always fascinating to me to see the theory crafting before the practical implication when we get to game, because sometimes it doesn't quite line up. So keep your eyes, of course, on the next game day for when that's going to be happening. But I mean, back into the game here, Dia. We're finally back on World's Edge, and this one's for real.
Oh, all right, I'll stop talking about Bloodhound Bangalore for now, but only for now on set. I'll be right back on it as soon as I've got an opportunity. Blacklist International, the inheritors of previous good fortune over on Stormpoint, now are going to have to make their way a little bit further south, but a nice loop path and overlook should take them right into an Evo Harvester as well. So still a pretty nice start, a pretty efficient one, and I like the fact that Uchako has chosen to land over No Name, as many teams that start in Overlook do, to get an early scan on everyone else. Now, full information on teams that, where they landed and who's rotating where. For example, 3D Max already making their way into Fragment is something Blacklist International might be curious about.
Yeah, very, very interesting to see if they try and make a play off the back of that, because obviously the zone is not quite as close as it was previously for them before we had the restart. But where we are going to be going is right down to the south side of World's Edge here. Launch site is looking like a very, very strong potential end game for some of these teams. And I've got to say, I like launch site zones because of I would say the interaction of different levels of elevation, right? You have a lot of teams who can play underneath each other, inside some of those side buildings, up on the extreme height. And I wouldn't be too surprised to see Rats already make an early move towards that height building, because as we know, the highest building is always going to be the easiest one to hold, because you have the greatest line of sight on so many teams who are arriving. And NIP have also left Lava Siphon. They're already on their way towards launch site as well. So all these teams recognizing, if we have an opportunity to get one of these prio positions with how strong they are over at launch site, we need to take it.
Very smooth rotation from a team like Nine Lives as well. Having looted up Tree, they'll have the opportunity to play, in my opinion, the second most powerful position, which is that far south building that isn't quite as high as the one that Rats have. It does provide a little bit more insulation from teams that would otherwise come through the choke, with not nearly as much opportunity to participate in kills that rotate through the east side of Ring.
I will say, by the way, NIP are probably thinking, hey, do the ring consoles spawn anymore on our POIs? Because they don't have one over at Lava Siphon, which is why they've had to head over towards Dome, which you probably saw, to at least hit a survey beacon, because they don't have one of those either at Siphon by the looks of it, to get some sort of information. So we mentioned how they had good prio to zone. Well, if you don't know where the zone is and you're not 100% sure, especially after what happened in that previous game where you might be second guessing yourself, then that can be the reason that they've had to decide to go and get that info elsewhere. Alliance, well, we talked about how Harvester is where they're going to be dropping, but the only thing that's dropping at the moment is Hackis, because it's Vex who get another early KP on the board.
And Alliance just take a little bit too long to move through Tree. You saw them waiting for 9 Lives earlier when we were on map view, but that delay has caused them to lose out on one member, and actually finding the banner up against Vex, it should be all right. It should be doable. Getting a full res and reset for Alliance will be much harder, as it's not just Vex, but Full English, Passion UA that are all heading down towards the south, and even Vex is starting to hear those shots from Passion UA now.
Yeah, you have to wonder if their escape route's going to be right. They have to try and get a banner, but also where do they leave, I think is a great point, right? Do they go through the tunnel towards Thermal Station? I mean, that might be an opportunity for them. They do have the banner of Hackis, and no surprise to see from Harvester they're playing Watson as well, due to, I would say, a pretty small loot pool when it comes to some of those meds that you can find, so it just gives you the opportunity to not worry about that too much. But NIP, this time it's not going to be Nasky who falls, it's going to be Zane. And again, looking back on this game, they might be a little bit miffed to find out that they basically didn't have the ring console and the info they needed to get to that zone. But elsewhere, Nasky's got to go huge, and unfortunately, it's just too much of a task. NIP will go down, 18 squads remaining as we lose our first team.
You could hear in my voice, but as soon as Nasky throws a nade, no matter how dire the situation is, there's a part of me that holds out hope. Now, FA kids do manage to take the fight. Now, having inherited Dome, they actually had a pretty smooth rotation here from Stacks. They'll get Survey Beacon as well, and a priority rotation into the south side of launch site that you actually can play really slow for quite a bit of time.
I mean, I gotta say, I kind of feel a little bit for NIP how different their games could have been if they had info at their POI, right? You look at that last game on Stormpoint, no ring console. Nasky gets caught out because he's overextended from the POI. Maybe a poor zone call, who knows? But teams, one thing we can confirm, teams rotating quickly, knowing where the info was. And then the same thing here on World's Edge. First game of World's Edge, they land over a Siphon. It's not far to go to get here in towards where this end game is going to be, but they don't have info again, so they have to go out of their way. They're forced to take a fight they don't want to take, and then all of a sudden they're out of the lobby first. So rough games and unfortunate games for NIP here. They're going to have to do some work here at the back end of World's Edge, but Babylon's going to be careful here as Vex are taking a fair bit of damage here.
That's one way to use Blood Ult. Just pops it, runs out into the open, and now doesn't get any value out of it. This is unfortunate for Vex, as they have to fully reset, having expended a very long cooldown that'll keep them from pushing into a position like the one full English hold and relegate them to the low ground. Much riskier position.
See, they've got that Watson gen down, which makes this more playable. I always look at those areas, and if you don't have a Watson, it's like, well, we can just get naded out, and at some point, someone's going to get some sort of damage they can make a play off the back of. But if you do have the Watson, at least, you know, you've got the guarantee that you're not going to get hit by their splash damage grenades, and the fact that you can kind of swing out using the natural geometry to hold out any teams that are coming in from that choke from the tree side. But I think they tried to make a play to take that build away from Full English. Didn't go the way they wanted, and then they've just had to retreat back to this as a secondary spot. But Nine Lives, I mean, they've found some really good spots to play in the last couple of games, and they're in a very good spot here again, dear.
One where they could even take a 3v3 later on into the game. Jumping down onto low ground, absolutely achievable if they find a favorable trade onto Vex. You will have to worry about pylon and fences as things go on, but lots of opportunity for fights to break out late game in launch site. Early game, that's not going to happen. Blacklist International have made their way up towards the next ring. In this case, having moved over towards Stacks, the smoke is providing crucial cover. The only reason Hiarka is alive right now, but somehow I don't think they're going to hit that beacon anytime soon.
I mean, they are getting shredded here, and it's going to be a combination of Rats, Forbidden, FA Kids, lots of teams in and around the area who have potential lines of sight at the moment, but nobody can overextend. So the damage that's been kind of eaten up here by Blacklist International means they can rotate away now. FA Kids over at Dome, they're going to be safe for now, but everybody knowing there's too many teams in the vicinity who could third party means that any kind of damage cannot be capitalized on. You can't close that ground without taking damage yourself. So everyone sets down, and I think Blacklist International go back into Stacks and they think, okay, we now know that there's multiple teams in the vicinity, in the area around Dome. What is our next play? How do we try and plan our rotate?
You got to imagine that with a ring like this, you really only have two options. Since you wouldn't push forward onto Forbidden, you can take the low ground, which I think Forbidden are ready for, or you can move up north and through Siphon, delaying your rotate into ring. Perhaps a better situation than the one Alliance currently find themselves in, or rather ANC currently find themselves in, where they've rushed the rotate and now find themselves with just a solo. Make that no one. ANC outplayed, go down to a barrage of teams, all of whom were waiting for that critical error.
Yeah, that was an ugly rotate. It's the only way to put it. You know, it was a little bit blind. They didn't have info, and Alliance, who are back up to a 3, by the way. They did manage to get the res onto Hackis, are the benefactors of that. Vex also, I think, were involved in getting that final kill. Maybe a team that was up on height, but Vex holding this spot makes it very difficult for anyone to now rotate through that choke. As you can see on your screen, the combination of fences and guns that are going to be staring at you makes it extremely difficult to move without taking damage. GG, though, they're doing a little bit of damage here as we see a banger come in.
Is it enough to swing through the smoke into range of 3D Max? It doesn't look like it is. Gaming Gladiators do have to play extremely careful when Blasts has been putting up so much damage. They do have to worry about how they navigate these close range fights. Let's jump into a listen in with the Gaming Gladiators.
I'm outside. No dog now. It's kind of fucking yikes. Kind of yikes.
I think we chill.
I'm fucking up then. Maybe look for me. I got scanned. Wait, I'm here.
Yeah, another squad, got it.
I'm batting.
It's a lot from the fucking compound. Come back.
Yep. So hard to fight them. We have more nades, it's huge. I have no surrenders, by the way, I can't now. Popping accelerant.
We need to get middle, lace up.
Okay. I'm not popping accelerant then.
We still have a good play, by the way.
Okay, just go quick. I don't think we even like need that.
Let's go mid Siphon.
Yeah.
But
Running.
I dropped ult. Can you grab it?
Ultimate
Quick, I have one.
accelerator. Get
Really
the
quick.
job done faster.
That should be players on mode.
Let's reposition.
Obviously, jump
there.
out of the comms. Something I just want to highlight there, dear, about the way that GG played that I always love seeing from teams is they were trying to play that fight around waiting for the scan coming in from Bangalore, right? And it wasn't, excuse me, from Bloodhound. It wasn't coming up for like 7-8 seconds, and the time was starting to elapse, and they went, do you know what? There's too much time in this fight. The team's probably going to start to look at this very soon, so they completely disengage and play the safer option. Elsewhere, DMS are not taking the safer option right now, as they have to fly into this fight. Good shots coming in. Taskmaster on his own, but he's a pretty special player, but not special enough. It's going to be a combination of Vex and Alliance who take out the final players. DMS will be eliminated.
So many teams, and I weep for DMS, who did get so close to turning that fight around. Just a few too many squads. Swinny swoops in, taking out Alliance, whittling us down to just 15 teams. That means placements have started to come in, and Exo Clan have got to make their next push onto Vex, who have held the low ground for as long as I can remember.
Well, this is going to be an interesting fight, right? Because you mentioned it. It's going to be the low ground team versus Exo, and the good thing for Vex is they've been able to peek and do a little bit of damage from this position for quite some time. So it's not going to be a straight fight. It's not going to be an easy fight here for Exo Clan, but they are going to have to force their way forward as that zone starts to become an issue. Nade's also going to be going in, going to be eaten by that gen though, D, and that's what we were talking about previously, right? It is an ugly looking fight.
FA Kids and Forbidden taking a pretty nasty one as well. FA Kids do have high ground, but Forbidden have the caustic gas that's obscuring a lot of vision and the ability to push. Izadin waiting for their moment. We know wants to slide on the engagement, but hasn't found the opportunity to just yet. Instead, takes a chunk out of Forbidden, taking them down as yet another squad rolls in. It's players in here to clean up.
Yeah, players getting the cavalry down, looking to pick up the knock. If they can get one, then this will be a very easy fight for them. But it looks like they weren't able to get a pick, if I'm not mistaken. So in this situation, they actually take the opportunity to put a couple of evacs down and say, hey, we're going to try and get ahead of you because the zone is going to be a problem for everybody. But Kajak, unfortunately, is left out to dry. He was forced to drop. And now you can see they are just moving in like piranhas here. This is a free KP for them.
Yeah, I was looking at that going, what's Kazakh gonna do? Walk? As soon as you drop off that zip line, you're done, and you know it. No way to survive for them, and unfortunately, players will be left to play this one out as a duo in launch site, where they've ended up landing. The rest of the map gonna continue moving in. Not a lot stands in the way of the FA Kids. 3D Max are going to be to the south of them, and Lava Siphon seems to be the happening place. A lot of movement out here as Exo chose not to take the fight onto Vex and instead is now playing low ground.
Yeah, back to the other side though. This is just about 4 or 5 teams just coming together on the northern side of this zone, and it's looking extremely difficult for anyone to get through. GG going to be one of those teams at the moment who are struggling to get through. Light's trying to poke up with that Havoc. Unfortunately, takes a little bit of damage. He's got traps all around him as well. He does have a knockdown to play with, but unfortunately, he's going to have to play with it in the death box because he's not going to survive long enough, and GG will go out as FA Kids now move into first place in the overalls as well, and a gold knock is going to help them get back up and be ready to fight in just an instant.
All right, Kainer reset near almost fully with high ground with plenty of loot boxes, looking very, very good for the FA Kids, as now they do have to move a little bit further to the north, but note the complete lack of contest they have on that rotate all the way until you hit Blacklist International.
9 lies. They're going to be taking on Vex. This fight has been waiting to happen for quite some time. It's a 1v1 here, and Vibes is trying to find a knockdown shield, but cannot find it. And 9 lies will be eliminated. It will be Vex who continue to hold this position. And hey, they got a gold res as well, so they're going to be able to get back up at least to fight. You have to wonder if there's going to be a Moby around for them to get their teammate back on the map as well. But I just want to quickly go back as we saw that map overhead, right? Blacklist International, who we said disengaged from that crazy fight that was happening out towards Stacks. Well, they're now in an amazing position for this endgame, right on the tip where everyone else is going to be in front of them. So a lot of work for them has been taken care of by just their choice of rotation. Exo Clan are going to have to make a little bit of a different move, though. This one's going to be aggressive. It's going to be a fight for them to get anywhere near this zone.
In fact, we can say almost the opposite for Exo Clan, where we're looking at Blacklist International going, wow, this rotation saved you a lot of trouble. Exo Clan has given them a lot. Now they're dealing with it very well as a 3v3 goes their way. Stay healthy, get deleted, but that's not it for Exo.
Yeah, they're going to have the zone behind them. It's going to be closing in. You can see Passion UA, they're in trouble as well. Max Strafey will be eliminated as the last player for them. 8 squads now remaining, as well as Danish make their play as well. But look at the difficulty to move for anyone across this open zone. You got Fusols, you got Catwalls, you got everybody just training their eyes onto these teams that are rotating. But ExoClan, the one advantage they have in this situation is they're last to arrive, and they have red evos, which allows them to survive for just a little bit longer.
The immediate scan onto somebody climbing over the rock on you. Slayers deals with this so well, though. This actually could be the end of FA Kids. With one down on ExoClan, Swinny does have to take a reset, but they've got enough space to do so. FA Kids go down. ExoClan take that fight by storm and shut down a monster of the lobby.
It's so funny, right? We talked about Blacklist International, who are chilling at the moment over at Dome, feet up. You know, they've got a cocktail in their hand. They're chilling. They're absolutely loving what's happening in the kill feed because they have no one near them. On the other side, ExoClan, I mean, they are absolutely exhausted, but full of adrenaline as they've just taken out half the lobby just to survive. And now they're going to have to worry about Rats, who are up on this high ground. This is the team who have been here for pretty much the majority of this game, expecting the pull towards where they hold at the moment. But now they're going to have to do a bit of work to defend this position.
Tolkien goes down. And with Vex on the push, plenty healthy as well. One miss swing from Denze could change this fight, though. A smoke does make this push a little harder, and a nice scan does the same. Vex gets swung on from behind. This reset is not being given any breathing room, but it's also not being given any nades. Note the lack of utility on the inside.
Oh, well, surprise, surprise, there's a player climbing up. He gets absolutely... just turned into all kinds of dust. That was ugly. Vexo, amazing shots coming in from the Havoc. That clip size needs to go down very soon, and I'm happy it will be as Vex try and force their way in, but the zone, I think, is going to claim a few victims because, unfortunately for Clemmy, it's looking like Rats are going to move in from their position, allow the zone to do the majority.
Oh no!
Mania back in!
Mania!
Back in!
Betrayal of the highest order is committed on the outside, and who shows up to clean this up but ExoClan from the other side of the zone. Only 4 teams are left. Make it 3 as Vex go down. ExoClan have height. We still have not seen Blacklist International touch the kill feed, but with 3 squads left, it's a solo from players Blacklist and Exo.
ExoClan have killed everything. Everybody, every team. Anything that's looked at them, they have killed. It has been an enormous game for them. And remember, they dropped over all the way from Sky West, which is quite the way to go. And the way they chose to go certainly wasn't the easiest path for sure. Well, the Fusol's going to go down as well, but that's going to get eaten immediately. So the one good thing that comes from that is players will be eliminated, and now it's a straight 3v3 as they have info. There's a Watson team below.
I'm going to throw on to that as well. With a lot of the Fusel being eliminated, you do know exactly where everyone is now. You may not be able to do much about it with the Watson gen, but even knowing what height they have to control, Exo do have an advantage. The smoke is causing the problems, however. The nades not finding purchase is really hurting, and this is the second time that Exo, with their fuse composition, has gone up against a Watson and been left a little listless.
And look at this as well. JMW, that gem position is so smart, but it looks like ExoClan, I mean, they don't worry about intelligence at this point. They just want to send themselves to the top of the leaderboard. They are going to fly forward. You can see they're popping the ult, but again, just being slowed down by this Watson. And even with all red Evo, even with all the HP you can get in the game, they just can't find an angle to play.
And there's no cover when eventually they should choose to drop down. So Exo have to find a creative way to bully Blacklist. Now in comes the swing from Slayers. That is a lot of damage. Slayers may have just single-handedly won this fight. As down goes Yarka, down goes Blacklist. Slayers eviscerates the second squad.
I mean, that's going to take anyone a long time to counter that number. If you start from 0, Slayer shows how to get it done when you've got no cover. Well, you just beam someone. It's as simple as that. And ExoClan, I mean, what a game. What a game it was for them. And their position in the leaderboards before that game and afterwards is going to look very, very different. An absolute monster game from them. And I tell you, it doesn't get much tougher from that from their rotate.
I am terrified having watched that game. EXO Clan came up against so much adversity. They dealt with it so many times. Many of those times just pulling a weird rotation off screen, showing up, cleaning up squads, and we're catching the tail end of it. Getting to watch that fight start to finish, not just towards the south end of launch site, but even towards the north side up against Stay Healthy. You could tell EXO are in prime fighting form.
Yeah, it's about time we saw them turn up a little bit, right? And again, there were another team that made a little bit of a change coming into this game day. And, well, I hate to say after a few games, it looks like it's working, but that kind of performance when you're trying to add firepower to a team certainly does get the confidence in each other as to how those team fights are going to end up going. So keep your eyes, of course, on them as we move through the games. And remember, that's a tough rotate for them. Sky West down to the launch site is a very, very long way to go. A lot of teams to fight through. So you got to wonder what they're going to do if the zone comes a little bit closer to them as well.
That's certainly true, and I can't help but throw a little bit of credit from this game into home court advantage. It may be a long rotate, but EXO have been playing out of Sky West since back when their name was not EXO, and importantly, back when Swinny and Slayers played together, which they actually had a stint of not doing in between their Sky West days and now. The fact that they are not only getting back together, but they're doing this from Sky West, and with a new third, it's a 30-point game for EXO Clan.
That's a nuke, everybody. We have dropped a nuke on the ALGS, and it is thanks to EXO Clan. It is 18 kills alongside the 12 placement points. It's very rare, everybody, that you see 30 in the total column. By the way, that's 30 after just one game. We will say that isn't total. That is not after a combination of games being added together, although some teams would probably take that at the end of a game day. 30 points is a monster performance from EXO Clan.
And let's just do a little bit of quick math now. Our production has informed me that this is 31% of the lobby that EXO Clan was able to take out, but I want to make this even simpler. If we take a look further down the leaderboard at FA Kids, who have 12 kills, and we add these together, FA Kids and EXO Clan killed 50% of all people that game.
That's quite the stat, isn't it? That's quite the stat. And it's just fascinating how they did it in such different ways, right? I mean, FA Kids had a position which they held for quite some time that was something they got early on, and then you look at EXO Clan just bulldozed their way through the other side of the map and just decided that they'd carve their own path. So there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they like to say, and there's more than one way to play Apex Legends. And yeah, we've just seen it for everybody. I got to say, by the way, NIP, we mentioned it at the start of that game, you're hoping they get a ring console soon, because otherwise I think that there's going to be some keyboards flying.
Yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Ninjas in Pajamas, but I'm thinking 07, just because of how unfortunate the luck of the draw has been for them so far. Now, Blacklist International, for all that last game didn't have them picking up that many kills, still with their placements combined with the 2 kills they were able to get, managed to retain their top spot over not EXO, but Free Agent Kids underneath them at 40 points. Alliance slotting next, and after all of that, it's EXO Clan. That was a 30-point game. They have 31 points total. I should say quite a bit about how the rest of the day has gone for them, how much World's Edge can mean to them, and the fortunate thing is, we've got 2 more games of World's Edge coming up right after the break.
As a medic, your job is to help people.
Need assistance here?
But I know the truth of this world. That death finds a way.
Time to rise and shine, skin bags.
We all kill, Kapatid. I just really, really enjoy it.
They're shooting at me.
Getting your shield dance.
Ooh, that's got a kick. I'm here to break the game.
Eyes open! Even in the wind!
Down low, too slow.
Order, sunny side up.
What do you say we give them something showy?
Coming in hot!
No.
Having fun yet? Watch me! Life is meant to die. I know that now. Now hold still, you hear? This might hurt a bit.
Battle Beaver is the official controller partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Welcome back once again, everybody. And if you didn't see the last game, I highly suggest that you check out the VODs because ExoClan went crazy, to say the least. 30 points they put on the board in the previous game, the first one on World's Edge. And Dan, you were watching in the wings. I mean, that was something to behold.
Yeah, we always talk about you getting a good POI, but can you make the games count from said POI? Well, they certainly did that with 30 points on the board. We mentioned that they had a very bad POI in Devastated Coast over towards Storm Point. No zones that pulled towards them, and even a zone that didn't pull towards them then, they made it count from Sky West and really prioritized World's Edge being where they wanted to focus their points coming into that POI draft. Very impressed with their performance, especially considering the team change that we saw coming through as well. But now ExoClan, they put themselves within that conversation right at the top of the leaderboard.
Well, you mentioned change, and one thing, of course, that is going to be changing very, very soon is some of the Apex Legends interactions landscape, right? And here is a more in-depth look at some of these mid-season patch notes. You'll notice at the top, you got some weapons, quads is coming, by the way. That's going to be fun. Map rotation and rotations and end rings. Dan, and I just want you to talk a little bit about some of these things in particular that jump out to you.
I think most importantly for ALGS, the end rings is going to be a big change. There is a more even distribution through the map. We are going to see roughly a 25% chance of each quadrant being in a final circle. So we have seen patterns throughout ALGS where sometimes like the entirety of Thermal hasn't had a ring, for example, on World's Edge. Well, that would more likely change now with these patch notes, which means we should get a far more fair final circle scenario for all of the teams competing in the ALGS.
Yeah, something to note as well is I'm sure a lot of people were smiling right now who do not enjoy using the Havoc. Me, being personally a controller player who plays Pathfinder, is sad to see the Havoc getting a little bit of a nerf. But it is completely understandable. You see how popular it is and how strong it is. And it's going to be the mag size is reduced for all of the mags, including no mag. And we'll have to see if that's going to be enough to see if that is going to have the impact that is required. I've got a feeling it might need a little bit more. I'm going to say, I think it's still going to be pretty popular in the LGS.
Yeah, I don't think a max size will necessarily kill it off, but certainly might have people not prioritizing it as much. But only time will tell once those patch notes do come into effect next week. But we've still got ALGS action to get through. We have 2 more matches here on World's Edge. We've just seen an incredible game coming out of ExoClan from Sky West. Can they do more of the same here?
We're going to have to find out. It was an absolute monster game. And like I said, if you just joined us, go back and check it out when you get a second, because it was a real kind of example of, well, what opportunity do we have? Not really too many. Everybody's in a great spot. We're going to have to fight our way to zone. And they just fought their way through 30% of the lobby, I think was the stat. More than 30% of the lobby. But this could be a little bit of a surprise for them.
Yeah, rolling teams who are dropping over at Lava Fissure. They're deciding just to creep in because you always expect only one person to be doing trials here.
Scans coming in. 3 are going to be scanned, and you have to get the feeling that ExoClan are going to be trying desperately to get towards Swinny, I think, who was the player who's trying to get away. They want this kill, but the Prowler's actually slowed them down a little bit, which might allow them to actually get out of here. But no, flesh damage is there. Adam wants this kill. He wants it bad. Can they find it? The answer is yes, and Swinny will be absolutely screaming at his monitor right now.
I will say Swinny did very well to get out of dodge as fast as possible, and there is still hope left here, potentially. 1 player left remaining. Rolling teams are very weak, but Exo have lost Slayers and K-Swinny. And the real question is for the final player on Exo, do you try and fight or is it flight in this situation? And it might have to be flight, which will open things up for players who are, of course, on Sky East. But what a play that is from rolling teams. For all we talk about POI draft and we talk about the fact that there's no contests, things like that can happen. With no contests being directly going on, you can move very quickly to another POI and catch players out that are going to be individually looting in certain areas.
Very, very interesting. So ExoClan, luckily, I think, collected enough points from the last game to at least tide them over for this one, because they ain't getting any this time. Alliance now making their rotate from Harvester. They're going to find that plan A isn't looking too good right now, so they're going to play the backside of the bridge for now and maybe reassess how they want to approach this zone. And for all the craziness that's happened at the start of this game, Dan, and all the conversation we've been having, we haven't even mentioned where the zone is going, and there is where the zone will be going, towards the train tracks. Maybe, tell you what, it might, maybe, just maybe, don't get ahead of ourselves here, but potential geyser zone as well, maybe on the dome building, who knows?
Yeah, I'm trying to look at previous circles. The closest circle we've had so far in ALGS, it kind of finished where Danish were currently residing and where Alliance are currently residing, kind of the middle of the circle between the two mountains, between basically Maud and Geyser. So we'll have to see whether it's more of the same and trends that way. But this is going to be one of those circles where I think you're going to get a 50-50 split of people committing to different sides of said mountain. As ExoClan, we jump on board with the final remaining player, and sadly, with no support legend, it's just going to be a case of trying to survive as a solo and getting at least a point or so on the board.
I'm pretty sure as well that he just got survey beacon scanned as well by rolling teams from SkyWest, so they're going to know exactly where he is, and I wonder if they're going to hit an evac or something to try and chase him down. But obviously, I'm looking forward to the final game now to see what happens between those two teams and if there's any beef that carries over, because I imagine that there will be. Elsewhere, towards Big Maud, or Large M, as I've now decided to call it for absolutely no reason, Blacklist International, whose placements today, Dan, have been what puts them in first place.
Yeah, I think Blacklist International, their positioning has been incredible so far in this series. They always seem to find themselves in one of the more dominant spots towards the end game, and even though it hasn't necessarily always ended up in a victory, they've always got into those big points and consistently across the board find themselves now in a position where they are in the #1 spot and could still be competing for the #1 spot as we go into these last two matches. Now, Danish, they find themselves on the train tracks. This is the area I was talking about of where the zone does sometimes finish, directly where they are currently standing. So whether they will look to try and control this height or move somewhere a little bit different.
Well, the R99, not what it once was, but still good enough in good hands to do the damage that is required, and Young Hong Kong showing there to stop that climb up is all you need is an R9. Also seeing that there's another team that's just moved in below them as well. So a lot of teams trying to get into this position at the moment. You've got Danish, 3D Max was the team trying to move up, and now Forbidden who are arriving as well through the evac. A lot of teams very, very close to each other as they're trying to play the backside of the eggshell for now.
Last time we did see the circle as well, it was a team from Big Maud who won this game, by the way, with a simple-ish rotation as you come through, as 3D Max find themselves just on the one player now after taking all that damage. It's whether you can do something alone as a caustic. Sadly, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. 3D Max will be our first team eliminated then, and Rats come out on top and now have one of the positions they can hold for quite some time if they don't get pushed by this squad up on height.
Danish, you got to be careful because they're holding down the position. You can see that when it's very easy to get walked up on this position, right? You have, like you said, the team on Maud who are probably going to be playing height, who have line of sight. You have the team in Dome, the Broken Shell, I should say, who are having a look at them as well. Anyone who moves up to that truck as well is going to have a good line of sight on them. And then, like I say, anyone who's on the bridge also is going to have a good line of sight. And when you have so many teams trailing their eyes on you, it makes it very difficult for you to take space yourself and get any shots down. So 800 odd Evo you could see for them to level up to purple. It's going to be pretty difficult for them to get there for the end game with just the fact that they don't really have any angles to play off.
Yeah, I think lack of angles is always a difficult position to find yourself in. And that's when you need your IGL to try and come up with something a little bit different to get you out of a tough spot. Now, down towards Stacks, we know the circle isn't going to be pulling all the way down here. Of course, FA Kids don't have that information right now, but I tell you what, that's going to be Vibes getting absolutely obliterated.
Yeah, and they want to push off of this. Zidane, unfortunately for him, just took a little bit of damage from the team that was in the Broken Shell, which is Forbidden, I think, so wasn't able to immediately pop the ult, pop the dogs, and chase those kills down, but should have done enough. You can see the finish has gone in, so Vice will be out for 9 lives, who've had some pretty good games in the last couple. But this time around, it looks like instead he's going to turn his attention away and fire up the hill this time. And let me tell you, this man's flatlining ain't moving too much.
Yeah, ever since we saw Zidane pushing in with the aggression in the early game and taking the amount of space, we knew what a confident player he already was, but seems to be oozing confidence even more here today. And FA Kids actually turning around to have a look at DMS here because they got shot in the back, and FA Kids aren't a team to turn away from a fight. They instantly, head on a swivel, said, all right, we'll just shoot you back. We're happy to try and press you here and press an advantage if we get some damage, but You can see the circle continuing to move towards the area I was speaking of, the train tracks between Big Maud and the likes of Lava Siphon and Geyser. Danish in a really good spot. Rats could be in a good spot if they manage to survive and don't get pressured from teams on height, but being below the train tracks sometimes is quite difficult to hold.
By the way, ExoClan are still alive, everybody, so it's not over yet. However, as you can see, very lonely member over at Landslide at the moment. It's much more difficult to rotate into this zone in the way that they did previously if you only have one player alive. So, you know, it's
or any
simple
zone
maths.
in that fact.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's pretty rough.
But at least there's the option of, you know, getting into the top 15 and getting 1 point, maybe even getting further and getting a couple of points, because those placement points could be everything for ExoClan as we look towards the end of this series. Now, NIP, a team who hasn't really been able to find points thus yet, only on 11th and 16th position right now, moving from north to south, and they're being chased by both players, and then it would be rolling teams afterwards. But now they've got this position, they've got this choke. NIP are in a spot where they can gatekeep, they can hold out players and maybe force players to go through the vault tunnel instead.
I need to just say again, by the way, NIP for the 3rd game in a row, no beacon, no ring console, Siphon. It is poverty games for them when it comes to information, and it's really affected them a little bit. You can see from the other leaderboards, right? They're just having to kind of play off instinct and hoping their zone calls are good enough, or maybe having to go out of their way, kind of counter rotate to, or negative rotate, I should say, to get info before they head in, and then everyone else, of course, is just going to overtake them. Full English now, they've landed, but it doesn't look like it's good for them because they are taking a lot of damage. A lot of teams tracing in on them at the moment, and they're in the zone, so a difficult rotate for them to get into stacks, but there's not a huge amount of teams in the building, so they should be able to slide in if they can just navigate their way away from some of the teams that you can see on your screen right now.
Yeah, I mean, being stuck between 9 Lives and FA Kids, 2 teams that are in form at the moment and are confident to take engagements, isn't going to be enjoyable for you. But Full English, I like this wrap. Trying to go a little bit further out, avoiding the sight lines of those who were holding you at stacks, and instead trying to get into the backside of Big M as you went for it. Now, stay healthy. Oh, large M. Just even better. Blacklist International and Stay Healthy are going to be on the large M though, so Full English have to be careful with the way that they move themselves into this zone.
Well, they should be safe, and I do kind of like this play from them. You can see they've got purple armors as well, and if they can maybe instigate a little bit of damage between these two teams, then there will be an opportunity for them to maybe third party. Also interesting to see they made this rotate based off of ring console information that they've got as well. So they've got zone 3 info, not just zone 2. Which makes their life a little bit easier. Like we were having the discussion, is it going to pull towards Geyser, maybe Siphon, or is it going to go to where you predicted it was? Well, now that they have that info, everyone else in essentially the lobby is going to be in front of them for now. So a very smart rotate for them. But I understand your pain. Oh, look at that one. NIP in a great spot. Who needs console?
But again, it's what I mentioned at the start. It can either go south or north of the mountain between Geyser and Big Maud, and
or it could do both.
Yeah, the fact that there is so much space covered by the mountains, again, there's always going to be a lack of playable room, and that means more fights that are going to happen in Zone 3 and Zone 4, because teams are going to have to force engagements because there isn't going to be space to actually play and getting a building and set up. Instead, it's about forcing your way in, and sometimes you have to force your way through other teams. So FA Kids, DMS, Lies, Forbidden, Full English, Blacklist International, Stay Healthy, they all are going to be arriving from that southeast side. And likelihood is only 1, maybe 2 of them will survive out of those 7 teams that I've just mentioned. Because yes, there is some room to play on the outskirts of Big Maud where all those kind of crates are that you can play around, but not really enough room for more than a team or 2.
Yeah, it's that paintball area is not the best area, like you say. We do see some end zones there, but I gotta say I haven't seen one for quite some time over there, and I think a lot of the teams are a little bit surprised. Maybe outside of Danish and GG, who are set up in a fantastic spot for this end game, and that truck is going to be prime real estate for people to hold down as well, especially because of the KP opportunity it will offer you from all these teams who are going to have to force their way in zone a little bit later on. But one team is going to be forced upon now is inside of Geyser, and it's Alliance, and rolling teams are heading towards them at the moment, but there's Arc Stars, there's nades, and I was about to say the armor looks great for them, but unfortunately they get knocked first.
Yeah, rolling teams have the reward of stealing away Sky West, of course, but sadly, it's not helped them out with the push because Alliance have been able to pick off Adam. And now Rolling Team's gonna have to try and do something as a duo, and Alliance, knowing that, take full advantage. But I think Alliance are well aware that it's not just Rolling Teams arriving from the north, so they don't want to be getting too aggressive. And you see Alliance are currently on blues, so maybe a little bit reluctant to get excessively aggressive right now and just picking and biding their time instead.
They're going to be safe as well. Vex eliminated in the meantime, so we're down to 17 squads now in the lobby. An Alliance in third position in the overalls. And now might have the opportunity to clean up the final 2 players, but Effect is going to take a little bit of damage himself. Unlucky will go down as well, and all of a sudden it's the 2v2.
2v2, and it's very winnable now for the opposition team of the Rolling Teams because they have the armors, they have the advantage, but Alliance have the Watson and the chance just to be able to fence up and reset here.
Double Jenny goes down, and they do have the gold knock as well, which is going to allow them to get back up to a 3 and have enough health to fight. 9 lives will be eliminated in the meantime. Forbidden now making their forceful move through, and it is going to have to be a forced one because look at where the zone is in the top left of your screen, and look at where they find themselves outside of stack. So any fight is going to be good for them. 0-0, even though he's down, is still doing a job of providing information, and DMS will be eliminated, but Forbidden, well, they might be next to go as well, as Aku is the last player alive.
Well, top 15, so those who have survived have got a 1 placement point. One of those being ExoClan, right from the very start, have been able to pick up 1 placement point as a solo rat. FA Kids now will hold the little dome area here, the eggshells that they can work with, and they'll be the only team really in this southern area. So they'll be able to be residing here until the zone forces them in. By the way, we did see Rolling Teams get eliminated, so ExoClan outplace Rolling Teams in the end, and it works out despite the fact Rolling Teams were very aggressive to take Sky West away from Exo.
Yeah, we also see GG be eliminated in the meantime as well, as Rats now, who have this Trax position and will have to move in a few moments' time. But they've got a Kraber, so they have an opportunity maybe to play for KP, maybe to play for some position as we switch away from the Kraber towards Alliance, because they are still under pressure here and they're trying to force their way towards this choke. Blacklist International have been eliminated in the meantime. They were in one of the priority positions as to where this zone is going to be going. So Alliance for now look like they're heavily playing for KP. They know this is going to be a team who has to leave and cross this open ground, and they want these kills. ANC outplayed in the meantime, we're down to 10.
The winner of this fight has to then fight NIP, who are at the top of this hill on the choke point, so it goes from bad to worse here. Even if you're able to win this engagement, if you are Alliance or players, and actually the solo of ExoClan looking to get involved, bear in mind, ExoClan now getting to the top 10, it's more placement points, but Alliance doing very well to just hold angles here and get good damage.
Yeah, really, really good damage. Now, can they force NIP back? That's the question for them. They will be safe in this corner, but look at the angles that NIP have. So difficult to move through. Players eliminated in the meantime as we move over to FA Kids. They are looking like this might be the end of their road and the end of their game here, as ExoClan will also be eliminated, but an amazing job from Feuda to get into the placement points and keep his team on that roll of momentum after an unpredictable start, to say the least.
It's Danish who are commanding all of the space in the middle of this zone. Alliance do get eliminated. FA Kids also go down. Passion UA and Danish doing a job together to kind of collapse around them here, and now Danish are looking to take full advantage of the damage that was already done onto Passion UA, and once they do so, Danish will own this eastern side, and not only that, but they'll have the kind of trailer that is in center of this zone as well.
And Sherb doing it with a Mozam with no attachments. That is the Giga Chad way to play Apex Legends, and I respect it for one. Full English, though. Look at them. They've managed to keep themselves alive here. There's a little pile of death boxes for them to play with. And we mentioned how their rotate looked like a really smart one, and then it became very, very difficult. Well, now it looks like they've got into a position to maybe win this game with the traffic ahead of them.
Well, with a chance to see if they think they can win the game, let's go into a listen and see just how the Full English are feeling right now.
Duo somewhere, and a full team across and a full team on the RV, okay? Yeah. I'm gonna scan exact. I'm scanning, see what's going on. Is that the duo? It might be. In the other car.
I think you're chasing the drop here.
I'm checking for all Excel here.
Need to fuck this duo on the cross.
Yeah, we need a kill right.
Is it only safe?
Longbow.
Yeah, it's safe on me.
Are we, we're in zone 2, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm holding a bit wider right now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go on lip.
Might get wide left by this team.
Dal, you need to watch that sniper guy, okay? I have only one bet if you guys have bets.
I have a good angle for the duo though.
Okay, yeah, I'll hold the duo, Let me know if it's smoke, guys. Scan ready.
We killed the banger.
Yeah, no, it's... No, we killed the Valk. I killed the Valk. Yeah. Sky it.
I'm bang.
I got fucking booked.
They're gonna inch off it, they're gonna...
Same thing.
I'm bang. Players not.
Just win the fucking 2v2 if they push you.
Yep.
Just full heal.
Aiming. One shot, no,
Nice.
one, I'm ready.
Back on the teams.
Chill, you want it, P? You're gonna drop your... Oh, you're up to
Go over the wall.
No, hold knock. It's our ult, right?
Yeah.
Fall back, kid.
I'm kind of good on me, bro. I'm good on me.
Can you crawl around to Del?
Yeah, I'm going left.
I'm gonna go over the wall.
Pick him.
I went over the wall. Scanning our back.
You need to shoot left.
Well, some big Skynades came in as we're finding ourselves down to 3 squads remaining now, and NIP, no beacon, no problem. They are in a great position here to turn their fortunes around.
Yeah, you said they've just been playing off gut instinct. Well, the gut instinct has got them into one of the better spots now for this final circle. It is a 3v3v3. Full English took a lot of damage, though, but they have been able to reset slowly and surely, but you could hear in the comms they are lacking a little bit with bats and available blues to try and heal up, so they just have to be a little bit careful. Now, all the meanwhile, Danish have been controlling that RV that we were speaking of earlier as well. So they have the most kind of cover in the lobby at the moment. They also have those little fences to work with as well. But NIP are taking as much angles as possible right now.
And look at this angle coming in from Nasky as well, shooting through the stairs. Gets the crack. He's trying to force the team or try and get a knock so that they can take a bit more space here. And NIP, what an opportunity this is. 3 games in a row without information to play off of. The previous 2 missed opportunities for sure, but maybe not their fault. And this time, they have their own destiny in their hands. Taking a little bit of a peek on that staircase, but not able to get that damage again.
And NIP, who are one of the teams in the top 8 in those playoff spots as we came into today, but they don't want to fall behind. They want to keep pushing their advantages. Now, Amphi's just gone down, and NIP should be able to get the res, though, because they've got the catwall available to them. 2 catwalls down, 1 has already fallen, and now you can see Danish are going to be potentially pushed here by Full English.
One thing the Danish have done well is keep that bang ult available, right? They held on to it, so anyone who has to move now from the open ground, from the cover across the open ground is going to have to take a little bit of damage, and that's exactly what NIP are finding. However, Full English are finding out at the moment that this isn't going to be an easy game to win either, and Danish just set up surely to take this one home down.
Danish should take this unless we see anything miraculous from NIP or Full English, but Danish have everything they could possibly want. It's as easy as that. Danish get the victory. They held their RV for so long, but most importantly, they won the big fights in the early game to give them that spot. And because Full English sent it on towards NIP and they kind of forced themselves into that position where they were weak, it just opened things up for Danish to clean up.
Danish with the win then. It was a position they held for quite some time, and when we first checked in with them, it was kind of like, how do they survive this? How do they get to a position to win this game? Well, as the zone just kind of shifted away from where maybe some of the teams were expecting and towards where their position essentially was, getting hold of that RV, that truck was so important for them in that end game. But I want to give a huge shout out as well to NIP. I mentioned how they've had to play with no beacons and really kind of had their games affected by it in the previous game. Sometimes that's just the roll of the dice. Well, getting into a second place there, I think they managed to close out in those final moments is going to be huge for their confidence, knowing that there's still a little bit more Apex to play today.
Yeah, NIP did well as well then. When they lost their first player in that 3v3v3, very easily could have been pushed, could have gone down, finished in 3rd place, but they were able to find a position to get out of the sightlines of Danish, and then Danish instantly shifted their focus, and it allowed NIP to pick up more points, and they'll be pretty happy with what they've been able to achieve. Now, moving forward, NIP, they'll be hoping they get a beacon or a ring console to work with, just so they can get any sort of extra information as maps go forward.
I think if you're adding up the stats, they should get both, is how I feel right now, and it should be both with like 7 Evo harvesters next to them as well. They'll probably be saying that's what we're owed at the moment. But one team who probably feels like they're owed an explanation is ExoClan for what happened at the start of that game, because that was something that I did not have on my bingo card.
They did manage to survive. The Rat got into the top 10 though, so at least placement points achieved, so job done for the solo. But yeah, rolling teams deciding, dropping at Lava Fisher to say, well, why should we give Sky West just to the team that's next to us? How about we actually try something a little bit different? We know there's usually only one player that does trials on their own, and it is the biggest indication of being able to send it on someone with all the information that is possibly there for you. You wait until that button is hit, you wait until those Prowlers come out, and then you full send.
Well, here's the scores from match 5. The total points you can see on the right-hand side is Danish with that win and 11 kills as well. It will put 23 on the board. NIP, second place for them, 5 kills means they get 14. Full English, as well. A little bit of a return to form for them after another little bit of a slow day means they get 10 points on the board. Passion UA, by the way, 10 points for them. 6 of them coming through KP means they'll be pretty happy with their performance in match number 5 too.
Now, it's not been the World's Edge that maybe Alliance could have achieved so far from Harvester, but still consistent points to keep them in the conversation of potentially winning today's series. And then we saw the early leavers, 9 Lives, Vex, 3D Max, and DMS all going out without a single point. But what is important is those who still exited early, the likes of Forbidden, Rolling Teams, Gaming Gladiators, were able to get kills on the board to at least ensure the fact that they could be putting something towards catching up those teams at the top.
We'll take a look at the stats from our top 3 from that previous game as well. And you can see in front of you, it's going to be Danish who will have the majority of the kills for sure. They were the ones who put up the most in that top 3. Young Hong Kong with 5 kills to his name and 5 assists. They're doing a lot of work for his team alongside Sherbet as well. He managed to put up 4 kills and 5 assists respectively. NIP more. You can see they're probably a little bit frustrated they didn't get some of those kills of the teams coming out of Geyser. Only came away with 5 total KP in that game. But more important for them is they got the points on the board to put them within striking distance. And what I mean by that is you look at them at the moment, the overalls. They're down in 12th, right? NIP, 12 placement points, 13 kills overall, 25 points. But one big game in this last game, and you could be up in that top 5. So their fortunes could certainly change.
They really could. And, you know, the top 5 is relatively close past Alliance. Exoclan and players being on 34. People can get up there, but it's FA Kids who lead the charge, but they are closely followed by Blacklist International, who have been excellent with their positioning, found themselves in almost all of the final circles. Yes, they might not have been winning those games. They might not have even got into the final 3, but they have been in that conversation. And if they can do it again, maybe they have a chance to find themselves at the top when the series ends today.
So we find ourselves in a very similar position that we have in the last couple of weeks, right? Everybody's so tight. Everybody's so close together when it comes to those points. And the final game is going to decide how that leaderboard looks. Make sure that you're here in a few minutes because we've got our final game coming up on World's Edge. We'll see you in just a few. Apex fans, perfect time to join us as always. It's never a bad time, but this one is particularly good as we have one more game to go in today's match day. And like the last one, it is so close between our top teams. We could not predict who's going to come out on top, Dan. It has been another fascinating day of EMEA action.
Yeah, we've got our lobby leaders, we've got our favorites going into this final game, but as we've seen, we've had big matches that have already happened so far, and we are already having the opportunity to see just some highlights from the previous game. You mentioned it, NIP, no ring console, no problem. They still got into the final circle and still gave themselves the opportunity to get into the top 2.
Yeah, an interesting point coming in from Dia here, just feeding some stats to us from behind the scenes. Is Blacklist International I want to kind of highlight because the last time, these two lobbies went up against each other, these two groups, they placed 20th, so a real turnaround for them. And NIP were actually the winners with 70 points in total, so kind of dominating the lobby a little bit, and it's not looking the same here as we head into match number 6. World's Edge is going to be where it takes place, and It's going to be, I think all eyes are going to be on SkyWest to start this off, right? Because ExoClan, I think they might send 2 players to Trials if I've got anything about me and I can predict anything.
Well, if we do see the likes of ExoClan have a game like they did in Game 4, then, you know, they can still find themselves at the top of the leaderboard. That's what's kind of scary for those who are leading at the moment, is a big game can change everything for any of these teams.
One more game to go then, and if you want to watch it, of course, you can watch the final match on Face It. If you want to choose a point of view to watch, and maybe ExoClan point of view might be a good one to start with to see what happens over at SkyWest and Trials. But this is what it comes down to, everybody. One match to decide where the leaderboards end up standing towards the end of the day, because it is a couple of points between every single placement, and things can certainly turn around even if you're in that, I would say, 15th and up spot. You can be top of the world going into this game, and at the end of it, you can be absolutely gutted. So here we go then, start off with the winners of previous game. It's going to be Danish.
Yeah, Danish, who found themselves in a brilliant position in the previous game, but of course dropping over towards Geyser. They had one of the priority spots and one of the priority rotates to get into that position they found themselves in. Is it going to be more difficult with the next zone? I can already tell you the answer is yes, because we're going to be heading a little bit further west this time. I was going to say northwest, but we're actually going to be going around the areas of Landslide, Staging, and Harvester here. I am keeping an eye on the map, by the way. Rolling Team's not contesting ExoClan at Trials. It does mean that ExoClan did decide to take 2 players over towards Trials this time, just to ensure that they weren't going to get pushed.
Well, let's talk about zone. Let's talk about where we're going to be going, and it's a good zone for Alliance. And if I had to... I was going to say if I had to put my money on it, and then I realized I'd said that sentence because I'm still not 100% sure which side is going to pull. Although I will say the little respawn building between Staging and Harvester is a pretty good bet for now. But with how much of Landslide is in, still a possibility it might pull towards that, maybe even towards the tracks where Vex are at the moment. So a tough one to read once again. Maybe Zone 3 info is going to be vital, but at least NIP, they don't actually have a ring console, do they? Again, they have a survey beacon, but they don't have a ring console.
Just pure sadness for NIP.
Yes.
I mean, it's difficult as well when you only have the survey beacon. Do you want to hit it early?
It's so rude.
Do you want to hit it early to try and get the Evo? Or do you try and wait a little bit and delay your rotation to get the information? And usually it's A, you just want it for the Evo, and then you move on and you just try and go with your gut instinct on where you think the zone is going to be anyway. But sadly for NOP, yeah, it's going to be a tough old journey for them once more, as we can also see teams now setting up in the areas around Staging.
So Passion UA inside of Staging, they're going to be playing the main building. Elsewhere, Alliance at the moment, they have the benefit of both ring console and survey beacon, although the survey beacon was a little bit exposed. I imagine they would have hit that as quickly as possible, not for the info, but for the Evo, like you say. Danish now moving their way in as well from Monument side. They're going to be going into Harvester alongside 9 Lies. Full English, they're going to be also arriving from the south side through the train tunnel, and Vex, who have moved up to this position in and around Landslide, seem like they maybe have a little bit of a different read on where they believe things are going to be going.
Yeah, I think the closest circle we've had so far in the ALGS, it pulled towards Harvester, but there was a lot less of Landslide that was within this zone, so it's harder to commit to it. When it does pull towards Harvester, it goes into the like northwest area of Harvester, just under the height, where you have to then drop down. It's not quite on the snake like we used to see it, but instead it's just like kind of in the cranny between the two. And we are seeing Alliance 9 Lies kind of playing that area right now, but could still pull a little bit further away. I mean, Passion UA, they're banking on it going towards Staging, and it's entirely possible that we get an area where it finishes towards Staging as well. Between Staging and Landslide, we've seen circles finish there too.
Yeah, this is a pretty difficult one to read, and I think you're seeing that at the moment based upon a lot of teams' position on a map overhead. Like a lot of teams essentially spread. It looks like Vex now having headed over to Landslide to hit the ring console. Now we're going to be playing the tunnel and moving back through towards the Harvester side. So that should give us some pretty good info on where we believe this is going to be going. It looks like even though so much of Landslide is in, it's going to be pulling the other way. But I mean, usually I'm historically pretty good on my zone calls, but we are seeing so many funky ones recently.
Yeah, a lot of difficult zones to try and predict for sure, and that sometimes means you just have to think on your feet a little bit more, which is what the IGLs have been doing successfully so far. 3D Max dodging, dipping at the moment just to keep themselves alive, and they should be absolutely fine here for now.
Bless you.
Damn, I muted my mic just like a second too late there. I thought I finished my sentence at the perfect time, but a millisecond too late. God damn it.
It's okay. You can mute up now, because there's always part 2 and part 3 of a sneeze. We always know that. So take your time. It's all good. Not too much action taking place right now, although we do see a knock coming in from Tolkien onto Sir Dell. So Full English are going to have one knock. I'm interested to see if that turns into a kill and a death box, or if they'll be able to get him back on his feet. But 3D Max, they're set up inside a Skyhook at the moment. Good news for Exoclan, by the way. Exoclan are good. Exoclan are chilling. Nothing happened. Nothing disastrous. Rolling teams are on the southern side of Skyhook West at the moment. Players also kind of in and around Skyhook. Gaming Gladiators at the moment. We saw them a few moments ago. They were around the Beacon Building, Grandma's house, towards the north of Monument. Rats at the moment just playing the height, holding some teams out for now, but a little bit of a slow last game, and it doesn't surprise me to see that, right? Because everybody knows that this is one game that can change a huge amount of placements for them.
Especially when right at the start of the show, we were looking at that magic number and we were looking at how teams are going to have to find themselves get to playoffs and how many points they would average need every single series they played. And for a lot of teams, they need kind of top 3 each time to guarantee themselves into those playoffs. So for the likes of FA Kids, Blacklist International, Danish, who are in the top 3 at the moment, they want to stay there for those big points.
Ooh, Naski's going to take a little bit of damage, and it's going to be Rats who are looking down on NIP at the moment from the area that we saw just a few moments ago, the kind of ridge line between where the majority of these teams find themselves right now outside of Harvester and between staging. So NIP are going to take a little bit of a wider rotate by the looks of things. Going to rise on the meds here. It looks like Amphi's got a couple of med kits, so they should be able to buy a little bit of time, but it looks like they might rotate actually deep into Thermal Station. And maybe they're thinking about Survey Beacon, maybe they're thinking about Ring Console to get up to purples at least, but information is something they haven't had for the majority of this game. So maybe they're just thinking, hey, even if we die in zone, at least we can say we hit a Ring Console.
just to see what it feels like.
Yeah.
Just to feel something.
Just to feel something. Yeah.
Well, zone is shifting a little bit further towards Harvester, which means we could end up with the zone that I was talking about that finishes kind of on the northwest side of Harvester, under the height that Nine Lives is currently playing, and towards the area that Alliance find themselves as well. It's that kind of open area. It's not going to finish within Harvester. It's going to be the open area next to it if it continues to move the way I think. Now, Forbidden, who are going to be up towards Landslide, they can maybe get some kills on Landslide and then force their way through the vault, but maybe they're unknowingly walking their way into their demise if they do go through vault, because Vex currently hold the vault area.
Yeah, a lot of these teams are trying to kind of funnel through a very small choke point at the moment, and as we always know, when that happens, there's usually only one team that comes out healthy from that position. One good thing here for Forbidden is they do have 0-0 on the caustic, so they can at least buy a little bit of space here and get an indication if a team does pop through. GG trying to force their way through. You did see ANC outplay get one of their players finished as well, so they've had to counter rotate outside of the zone to try and see if they can get them back into the game, but by doing so might run into Rolling Teams and Exoclan, who, by the way, might be part 2 of the story about to take place over at Lava Fissure between those 2 teams.
Yeah, Exoclan, Rolling Teams, and Outplayed are all in the same kind of rotation at the moment, making their way on the far west. Also, FA Kids, they're going to be in a pretty good spot right now on the southern side, but they are noticing other areas and other teams in the vicinity.
Yeah, there's some big shots. I mean, they didn't really poke that much, but just great team fire coming in. And now they're going to have to burn the catwall to get him back onto his feet, but that's why you have the catwall, right? It gives you opportunities to reset as well as rotate. No armor swap going to come in so that everybody has a little bit of health to play with. And now a few meds being shared out as well, but the only problem with getting knocked in that position is now you don't have the catwall for your next rotate. Now they will be safe and they will be able to hold this choke for quite some time, but one team who's probably not feeling too safe right now is NIP, because Amphi is out of the game and it's up to Zayn and Naski to survive.
Yeah, the saving grace for FA Kids was that 3 teams turned up at the same time and they all started shooting each other. NIP being one of them, Rats and DMS all trying to force their way through this same tunnel on the south. NIP as a 2, what can they rescue here to try and keep themselves in that top 8 in the overall standings? to be in a shout for playoffs as we move forward here in Pro League. And for FA Kids, you mentioned it, they were able to find a spot to play, and that's important because they're in first place at the moment. They don't want to be going down early and offering up what is a great opportunity for them to find big points here today, as NIP are officially eliminated here. Rats and DMS getting the job done working together.
Yeah, I imagine what those conversations are going to be coming in from NIP as well. A little bit frustrated, I would imagine, with the cards have been dealt today. But Rats, they take care of them for now. Elsewhere, you did see that GG and Blacklist International have a little bit of a poke as they try and work their way through the choke towards Harvester. But as we stay on board here with the fight that's taking place outside of Thermal, onto this ridge line, there's so many teams who are stacked up at the moment. You can see it's Rats, FA Kid, and DMS all in the vicinity and all want to take control of this tunnel.
Yeah, FA Kids just need to be a little bit careful they don't overcommit because they do have the high ground to work with on that eastern side. DMS might get forced back. Elsewhere, you can see 3D Max. They're on the north. They're fighting players at the moment just coming out of Monument. They might have to actually force this engagement because I don't think they're going to have time to try and move away and rotate out of this one.
Yeah, this zone's going to start hurting as well. So the longer this fight takes, the bad news, the worst news, I should say, is for every single player who's involved in this fight. And for 3D Max, who are the team who are behind players at the moment, essentially both teams are just damaging each other. And you would imagine the Blacklist International, who are overlooking this safe in zone at the moment, should be the benefactors of it. There are Blacklist International. I mean, it's a great shot from our observer to show you exactly how things are looking, and that's right at the top right-hand side of your screen. So everybody with some pretty tough decisions to make outside of Blacklist International on that side.
So zone is continuing to trend towards the area I previously mentioned. So just north of where 9 lies are in that open area has been the final circle many a time. Sometimes back in the day it used to drift towards the snake of where Alliance are holding as well, but I think it's more likely to be in the open space, which is going to be difficult for a lot of teams arriving late. Now Gaming Gladiators on this eastern side, they're being contested by Stay Healthy, but also other teams that could join this fight if you're not careful. So you either want to finish it quickly or just avoid it entirely.
Yeah, this is a really rough spot, though. You can see they've barely got any cover, and Alliance are just going to overextend a little bit here. Hackis is taking an off angle to force them to take a fight themselves, and unfortunately, it's looking like this could be the end of the day for GG. Last swing going to come in, and Gaming Gladiators will be eliminated. So another team who was up at the top of the leaderboards falls out early, and for teams like Stay Healthy, that's a great piece of news to receive, knowing that if you take out the teams that are above you, and trust me, there's a fair few of them when you're in 17th, you can jump up those leaderboards extremely quickly.
Yeah, Gaming Gladiators are first team in the top 10 in the overalls to go down here, but that opens things up, as you mentioned, to those below. 3D Max, Rolling Teams, 9 Lies, Vex, who are all chasing the likes of Gaming Gladiators. And even further up, Players also go down. That's another team in the top 10. They were in 6th coming into this, so they won't be able to get any further. They won't be able to progress. And then Rolling Teams go down. So we've just had 3 teams within our top 10 eliminated in such quick succession.
We're about to have another team eliminated as well, as Andy Jax is spraying desperately, but unfortunately the zone is going to claim not just Exo Clan, but him as well, you would imagine. As 3D Max, the zone's closing behind them, but there's still a little bit of time to craft on your way through. They will be safe. ANC outplayed, eliminated. 13 squads now remaining, and all of these teams on this northern side, by the way, still have to rotate, and everyone has banked on the rotate through the Vault Tunnel. So everybody here, and that's 4 teams, by the way, including Vex, who are holding it at the moment, have to go through one spot.
And you know who it's most difficult for? Blacklist International. They not only have to go through 3D Max, but then Forbidden, and then Vex, excuse me. I've said Vex like 3 times today.
Easy mistake.
Easy mistake to make. It's just habit at that point. But yeah, Blacklist International can't go back east. They have to go west through this tunnel. And sadly for them, even if they're able to beat 3D Max in a straight 3v3, it won't be a straight 3v3 because Forbidden are just waiting in the wings to try and pick up the pieces of what potentially could happen.
I mean, at the moment, you see 3D Max want to take this fight because they know they have to deal with it, and you're going to see that's why the ult is being popped here by Aimbot trying to move in, trying to push them away. But Blacklist International, they're holding the line here, and all of a sudden this is turning on its head. They know they have to take this fight, but this is just playing into the hands of Blacklist International. Forbidden now moving up as well, but Blacklist, they've pretty much stayed healthy, and if they can get an armor swap out of this, then they will pretty much have a straight 3v3.
Well, they're so weak, though, and Forbidden have to be quick and take full advantage of how much damage they've been able to lay down from a distance, and they should surely clean this up. Blacklist International are retreating all the way out of the tunnel, by the way. just to make sure they reset. But with the zone closing in 5 seconds, Blacklist International, they have to then try and take an evac tower to get over at this point.
They ain't going to be able to evac anywhere, I'm pretty sure. They're going to have to go back through that tunnel. They're trying to evac, but I think it's a little bit of a Hail Mary and saying, hey, I wonder if we can go over this, but we'll have to find out in a few moments' time. But they do! They make it! Blacklist International have just flown directly into zone, and that evac is genius. Their only choice. And they have landed right on top of the high ground.
Yeah, they are slap center, bang in the middle, but they are very vulnerable to those who are surrounding them. By the way, right now, FA Kids and Blacklist International are tied in first place on 50 points. Vex now will pick up the pieces of Forbidden coming out of this tunnel as well. And Vex have taken a lot of damage, but they will reply with damage of their own.
They should be able to hold this high ground. It's only one player, I believe, left for them to deal with. So a 2v1 situation, maybe a 2v2. Maybe this is a little bit closer than we initially thought. But with 11 squads now remaining, Vex have been trying to wait and bide their time for these teams to move through the tunnel for quite some time. It is just Calamitous, so it's a 2v1 for them, and they should be able to stick that res. But speaking of the rotators, speaking of the craziness, back to the zone themselves. Danish down on the low ground. Blacklist International bang center of zone now as FA Kids, who are in first place overall at the moment, make their move.
I think what's important is Blacklist International survived on their rotation, and they were able to stop all of that damage coming from elsewhere. Speaking of damage, FA Kids on this western side now looking towards Blacklist International and Rats. It looks like Rats is the team they were able to pick a fight with and force them away, but FA Kids need to win this fight and then find their way into zone. At the moment, they are still in joint first, and they are trying to get even more points as Vex go down in 9th.
They should be able to clean up this KP in the trench as well. One more player trying to escape should just secure these kills and make sure that you get a little bit of loot on your way forward. Blacklist International will be eliminated. Alliance still alive as well. From Harvester had the best prio in this entire zone, and you can see that for the fact that they've still only got the blue armor. Stay healthy eliminated. Rad's got as well. We're down to 5.
And the zone is pulling towards that snake that I was speaking of, but it will be outside of the snake where it finally finishes. So Alliance will be fine to reside here as they take down another squad. Passion UA are above them, but the big news with Blacklist International going down means it blows it wide open for FA Kids to win this entire thing. It's going to be down to FA Kids or Alliance here. Alliance at the moment are 10 points behind FA Kids, which they can catch up if they win this game and eliminate FA Kids.
I mean, Alliance are desperately trying to hold. You can see they took out the drone as well, so the EMP is not going to be able to be used here by Passion UA, which would have stunned them all into a corner. And Effect has also got an Eva 8, which is the perfect weapon to hold these narrow doorways. It looks like Alliance somehow will be able to reset through all of this, holding off the third party. You got to say it's a combination of teams shying towards those doors, getting those fences down as well, and just staggering this push.
So Alliance just trying to keep Passion UA at bay. FA Kids are more concerned about 9 Lives, who are on the south side, on the height that we mentioned right at the start when we saw it was trending towards Harvester as well. But 9 Lives have just lost 1 player on their rotation, so that will open things up for FA Kids.
Yeah, they lost them to zone as well, I'm pretty sure, as 9 Lives now play down on the low ground. FA Kids have complete control of the height that you can see here, and they've got full red Evos, so Alliance at the moment have the majority of the cover. If they can survive and wait for other teams to be forced to engage outside of this snake building, then they will be in a position to maybe win this game, and they also have the weaponry to do it.
Alliance would have to get every remaining kill here if they want to find themselves winning the entire thing, but with 9 Lives going down and FA Kids picking up yet another set of kills, that probably confirms that FA Kids should take this entire series. But to be sure, they want to be winning the whole thing, but they have the high ground, they have the position, and they've got the armors. Everything you could possibly want to win this game now.
Well, we might see a repeat of game number 1 here, Alliance versus FA Kids, and last time it was FA Kids in the 3v3 who got that win, and Alliance had the better Evos that time around. Well, this time it's FA Kids who have got the better Evos, so we'll have to see if they can deal with Passion UA if this 3v3 is going to take place. And there is that first knock coming in from the man who has been instrumental in the success of FA Kids today. Zidane with the first knock onto Max Strafey.
No ult for Zidane, but I don't think it's going to matter too much. They just need to make sure they're playing together here. Don't overexpose yourself, don't overextend and get taken out and put your team in a scenario where they have to fight as a 2. Zidane is taking a very aggressive position, which can work out, but it can also be a detriment if you're not too careful.
Yeah, he's being looked over by his 2 teammates here, so they should be able to kind of help him in any situation where he has to escape or needs a little bit of assistance. Bang in center of zone. And and will be able to take the height. FA Kids have the zone for now. It's just about if they get the KP alongside a potential win to close out the day as well. Max Strafey will go down again. This time they'll get the finish, and now Passion ULA will be completely and utterly eliminated. Zidane will get the armor swap, and now it is that 3v3 we were talking about. But surely FA Kids with Zidane once again leading the line will be able to close out and get the win in the final game of the day here. But maybe Effector's got something to say about it. Jay Savage goes in now, and it's a 1v2. I'm pretty sure to close things out here in the favor. Actually, it's a 1v1 to close things out. Jay Savage is trying to move up here. It's a straight 1v1 to win it. And he will win it. FA Kids will win the day as he clutches the 1v1.
FA Kids get the job again. They finished just as they started with another victory. Hats off to Alliance for sending themselves up in tied second place with Blacklist International as well. But it is FA Kids who win by quite a considerable margin in the end. And it is all about their aggression and how they play as a team, the confidence in every single fight they find themselves engaged in.
Yeah, one thing I love about how they played that end game as well is they know that Zidane is the player who's going to output the most damage in a 1v1 scenario, right? So they position themselves essentially as him as the center of attention for them to deal with. Zidane is then feeding information back and saying, hey, I've damaged here. Now you look at that. Help me escape, right? And it's just a perfect example of synergy with baiting and switching from the team, on top of the fact that they had such a strong position when it comes to the extreme height that they had. So an amazing job for them to win it. And then you need the clutch factor, right? It's the one thing you can never really, I say, quantify when it comes to 1v1 moments. And they had it. The 1v1 is won and they win the day.
Also very impressive the way that FA Kids were able to move their way into that circle. We started to see it trending towards Harvester. The team within Harvester was Alliance, but sometimes you can see the difference for playing late and playing edge and taking kind of better positions rather than forcing yourself into that zone. Kind of have to if you are Alliance dropping over towards Harvester, but they were kind of stuck in that snake. And sadly, if you are in that spot, you can't take one of the priority positions. You're probably going to finish top 3 from there, but winning is very difficult. Now, they were so close to winning it in that final fight, so we do have to give credit to Alliance for giving it a good effort, but sadly weren't able to come on top, but they still do finish in joint second, and it is going to come down to a tiebreaker between them and Blacklist International for who takes second place today.
Yeah, very, very intense final game there. And for a second, I thought that this was just all FA Kids in that final moment. I felt like it was a 2v1. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, this is a 1v1. Somehow, Alliance have managed to equal this fight up. And one player's got to climb and one player doesn't have to climb. And I almost expected to see an Alliance banner jump up, but it isn't going to be what we do see in that final moment there. But again, what an incredible set of games we had today, right? It comes down to the last moments of the last games. And I think EMEA at the moment is pretty crazy to watch with the... I would say the unpredictability factor that we are seeing. But FA Kids with 15 kills and 27. I mean, sometimes you just put it in your own hand saying, hey, I get it done myself.
Yeah, I think that's the difference when you can move in with the zone and you can take fights, you can win fights, you can gain better armor, you can gain better loot. On the flip side for Alliance, it was having a position to hold from the very start, getting a couple of fights when people do push your area and winning them, but FA Kids just making it no doubt that they would be winning this series today. Fashion UA also giving it a valiant effort in the final game to try and get more on the leaderboard for themselves, 12 points on the board, and then it's the consistent 6+ points for those who were just a little bit lower in the first half of this leaderboard.
Yeah, it was interesting to see how Alliance actually dealt with Passion UA as well, because a really big moment for Alliance to turn a top 3 into a top 2 at least with an opportunity to win the game was just taking out that EMP that seemed to have snuck in for a second. If that goes off, they're stunned, the fences disappear from the Watson, and all of a sudden, Passion UA can move in and maybe take Alliance down, but they held it off, managed to take that drone down before it was too much of a nuisance. And at the other end, you can see NIP. I mean, what a day it's been for them, right? And I mean this in the, I have some sympathy for them and what they've had to play through today, but at the same time, you can look at the other end of the leaderboard and you see like teams like ANC outplayed, been a bit quiet today. DMS barely seen anything from them as well. And just a day where a lot of the kills in the final game seem to go one way.
They really did. I think that when you see a point sponge happen like that in the final game and it's the team that's leading, that's actually not bad news for those who are competing for the top 10 positions, because likely is you're not going to be overtaken as easily when so much points are gobbled up. And it will be very important, I'm sure, when it comes down to the final standings before playoffs. When we look at which teams qualify, today could have made a huge difference. I mean, of course, every week, every series does make a big difference, but this one was significant because it was the last round again of the second round robin when you're able to really put yourself ahead of certain teams. Hi, dear. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. I was just listening to that and thinking back on the last time that these two squads met, or rather these two groups met. You mentioned it yourself with Ninjas in Pajamas being the team that finished first, then Blacklist International finishing 20th. FA Kids finished 16th the last time that these two groups met, and the change from that to first, absolutely massive. I do want to take a look at how they did it, especially towards the end, as we do have our final circles from these last 3 games, and they were very, very exciting games. Onset, you'll remember fondly the EXO finish at launch site.
Yeah, the EXO bulldozer. This is what this game will be remembered as, and we were lucky enough to watch it happen. A lot of it from their POV, and this is pretty much what you're going to see, right? They're just swinging onto teams who are in positions where they're kind of forced to fight, and with the red evos you feel so confident a lot of the time, and the way that they pinched here towards the end, we were thinking, hey, they have no cover to play with, but we forgot that they had Slayers and he had Havoc, and it doesn't really matter if you have no cover to play. If the team who are responding to you get absolutely decimated in that first push. So a very impressive performance from them, and that was a 30+ point game I think they put on the board.
Yeah, absolutely wild from them. And when we walked up to the second game, I was wondering, what would EXO Clan do? They actually didn't get to participate, instead leaving all the fun at the end game to everyone else. Danish, of course, performed very well, but Ninjas in Pajamas found some really exciting fights as well. Notably, we kept hearing it without Beacon being able to do all of this over at, what did we call it? Large M, Gaskin?
Large M was what Mark went with. I think Mark has been known as Large M for a few years as well, ever since he started putting on that muscle. But then match 6 is when we saw just an incredible performance from FA Kids to dominate the lobby with kills, and then also find themselves in a very strong final position. But we have to give credit to Alliance, who competed in these final moments. And I just want to touch upon something you said, Dear, as well, with the difference between last time these groups played to when they played today. And the POI draft has changed everything. Previously in splits, we'd be like, oh, you know, slightly concerning if a team finishes first and then finishes 16th. What's happened? They're suddenly really terrible. But it can be down to a poor POI draft. Maybe you didn't get as good a selections as previous times, or for NIP's scenario, they just didn't get any ring consoles today, which can really hurt them. But it's about getting a good amount of points on the board when you have a bad week, whether that be via your POI draft when you're not in a good position, or if you just have bad luck when it comes to some of those rings and ring consoles. If you can pick up good points in your bad weeks, you will find yourself in a good spot as the series has come to an end.
I mean, I'm really impressed with the way that a lot of our teams have been able to adapt. And I know that we are talking about quite a few of the squads that made it into the top couple. One that's really standing out to me is Blacklist International, and we'll get the chance to talk to them a little bit later. But I spoke to Hiarka before Split 1 playoffs talking about POIs, and they were one of those squads that felt like they were going to be the most adaptable moving into this POI draft, because they've never really cared about where they led. Their game plan does adapt so often from game to game, but I think with a lot of other factors, including the Bangalore Bloodhound and every other team, I think, scrambling to adapt themselves, there's been a lot of unreliability. It's not just that you may not know what you're going to do out of your POI, but that a lot of other squads up until this late into the season also may not have a great idea of what they're going to do. However, with the second round robin concluding, these are your results for the series of Groups B and Group C. Free Agent Kids, or FA Kids, managed to make their way all the way to first place, absolutely decimating their results from last time these two met, with 75 points, dwarfing the second place score. Alliance, they did well on set, but 53 points is a far cry from 75.
It certainly is, but when you see the team above you with 43 kills in comparison to the next highest in the lobby of 27, you're going to go, do you know what? You deserved it today, FA Kids. Congratulations on the win. Alliance will be more than happy with the second place, I'm sure. It's now, I think, a first and a second back-to-back for them, so very, very good results for them. Really starting to find their form, and then, of course, we're going to have a big change with the meta coming up soon, so things for them to think about. Blacklist International, though, I think, in my opinion, the story of today, like you said, the big turnaround in fortunes from the last two teams these groups played against each other to come in third with pretty low KP, I would say, comparatively for the amount of placement points they managed to get, shows that they were very, very good at reading those zones and playing for that end game. But at the other end, you're looking at teams like NIP. I think this is a day to forget for them. They probably will not even watch the VODs because they're like, we know what was wrong. We really just didn't have info like to play off of. So a tough one for them for sure.
It happens to everyone, and unfortunately, you are going to have to adapt. We are going to take a look, however, at how this has impacted the regular season standings, as now every team across every group has played the same amount of matches, the same amount of series, and Alliance stand tall. With their second place today, they moved to the very top of EMEA. I can't say this is a surprise, Gaskin.
No, considering Split 1 when Alliance absolutely dominated the competition, it was almost a matter of time to see when they would find form. And of course, with the POI draft and everything changing a little bit, everyone's kind of learning as they go, and Alliance started off a little bit rocky, but then after last week's performance, where they were able to pick up those 25 points into a second place here on this match week, now finds them at the top once more, returning to their former glory, and I think they will be very confident that they should make playoffs. Now, we did mention that magic number around 96, but we have also seen in previous seasons, top 8 is usually round out about 80 points, so Alliance are very close now, you'd imagine, to being at playoffs.
And near the bottom of this list, number 9, FA Kids. Of course, standout performance today. This has rocketed them up 12 places in the league. When we looked at the start of the day, what Xander Commander had given us via the Reddit, it was FA Kids that needed to average 15.5 points a day, very close to your 16 Doomer number, Gaskin. But the fact that FA Kids have managed to make their way all the way this far up should be, I want to say, lowering that threshold. There's a lot less pressure on the next 2 days of games for them. Let's take a look, however, at those teams that do have a little bit more pressure on them, because 11th through 20th is where the real concern lies. Now, some of these teams were here earlier. A lot of them have been pushed down, but Onset, never to fear. Many of the teams that have fallen places have fallen simply because they didn't play today.
Yeah, it's very, very true, and I think it's always good to keep that in mind, right? It's easy to look at things and be like, hey, you know, that team hasn't played that, they're not doing well, but they played less game days. But this is a great indicator, right? This is the second set of round robins, now done. Everyone's played the same amount of games. Outside of, by the way, just will make a note if you're joining it, right? Passion will not be playing in the rest of this Pro League. That's disbanded, so that's why they have 3 series played. But everybody else will also be looking and thinking, hey, this is a lot closer than we thought, right? And we were talking about the magic number. We were talking about how many points you need. Well, Aurora, who are currently sat in 19th, will realize now that one win in a game day, and this can completely change their fortunes for the seasons. And I think a lot of eyes are going to be on them the next time that they play, because there's an air of expectancy about Aurora, right? They made the finals of LAN last time around. They were involved in some of the craziest moments that we saw. They were a real shining light for EMEA. Now they need to prove it back in their own region that they can get back to the Split 2 playoffs, because it's looking like a long way off before today, but maybe there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel after the performances and how the points stack up.
There really could be. I mean, ANC outplayed are another team that's standing out to me. They're falling down a little bit, perhaps towards these bottom 10 teams, and that's where I find the biggest surprise of the day. Yes, the biggest story so far of today's games has been Blacklist International, but through all of that, they still are in the bottom 10 teams of the league. Crawling out from this position is going to be really tough. And Gaskin, we mentioned that 16 points of, like, when you need 16 points a day, things are looking really rough. Blacklist International came in needing 17.3 points per day. And while they've achieved it today, there's still a long road to the end of Pro League.
Yeah, and whilst we talk about, you know, the magic number and what teams might be getting to playoffs, we're starting to realize now there are probably some teams who mathematically cannot get to playoffs. If you can imagine, you can only get 25 points as a max each time you play, and we're seeing some teams on like 7, for example. Sadly, I don't think we're going to be seeing them there at playoffs, and that sad realization is going to change how you play, and then you start to think about what happens moving forward. Are you a team that's already gained points from playoffs? You start to worry about champs. It's certainly a difficult position when you are down at the bottom of that leaderboard.
Now, in Split 2, things can get tricky, and as you said, you can start to lose the mathematical possibility of making it into playoffs. I will say we're very fortunate to have the LCQ available for a lot of teams that would like to go to champs as well. So we should be still seeing teams play at the top of their game, even as playoffs can get further away. I do want to give credit, though, because FA Kids deserve quite a bit for what they achieved today. Of course, they've got the first place. What more can we give them? I'll tell you what more we can give them. We can give them an MVP. And today's MVP is going to be going to none other than the monster of today's series, Zidane, who across all 6 games was putting on what I described backstage as psychotic performances. Just sitting back and absolutely decimating people, not from range, but instead being able to slide in, pick his moment, and honestly, statistically, Zidane was a marvel. 16 kills today. That was the most of any player in today's games. 19 assists, clocking in a second, and 7.7 thousand damage. Again, topping the leaderboards. A lot of this is really due to the fact that Zidane has one of those things that stands out to you when you're playing ranked. You definitely notice it, you definitely feel it, but he has killer instinct on a level that very few other players are able to replicate, and seeing that come out today really did his teams a lot of favors. You guys talked about how risky safe the position that he was playing in game 6 was. That is not an accident. Zidane dominates for FA Kids today and takes them in no small part all the way up to first place. Really incredible performance, and I love seeing players like this be able to pop off and succeed on set.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing day, and it's something that we've seen him do before, right? This isn't the first time we've been talking about Zidane. This is something that occasionally he pops up and he puts in one of these performances, and then you're like, hey, we expect to see this again next time out. So a lot of eyes on Zidane moving forward for the rest of the split, and for FA Kids is the perfect time to put in this kind of performance, especially, you know, with Split 2 coming up. And if you're an org out there at the moment and you're looking to maybe invest some money into a team, well, maybe this is the team for you, because they need a higher res logo for sure.
That they do. And I mean, maybe that's why I'm saying free agent kids, Gaskin. I'm trying to spell it out for everyone who's watching. Please, somebody sign this team. Like, it seems, especially after their performance today, like the biggest no-brainer decision.
You're literally like, free agent kids. Just someone please sign them. And performing well and winning Pro League Series is going to put you in the spotlight, and you are more likely to get signed. So they are putting their best foot forward by performing in this way, and I hope that they do find an organization to represent, and one that they deserve, most certainly, but also I want an org to, you know, truly believe in them and what they can do moving forward as well.
It's something that a lot of our players are very lucky to have, is orgs that represent, that believe in them. And for our interview today, I've actually chosen to pivot just a little bit. We're not going to be going with free agent kids, but definitely a player and an org that's got a lot of belief. Please give a warm welcome to JMW from Blacklist International. JMW, hey, welcome to the broadcast. We have been hyping you guys up all day. This was a very, very good performance from you.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you for having me, guys. Appreciate it. And yeah, it was a very good day for us. Really good.
I mean, it was a pleasure watching, especially during the first couple of games on Stormpoint, how you were continually diving into zone. But I wanted to have you on because you're not only part of the squad that did take the spotlight today, but also from Passion that has recently disbanded, and there was a lot of conversation about the goodwill that came with the Passion breakup, move to different rosters. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. How was today playing with a new squad, no longer getting to play with the team that you've gone through the rest of Pro League with? And what do you look forward to? What do you miss?
Well, of course, like everything was unexpected, and I think everybody didn't really expect things like to happen like the way it did. So like I got an opportunity, and you know, I appreciate Passion for like feeling confident in me to have me. But then obviously another opportunity arose, which obviously was very unexpected. So I just took a leap of faith. You know, when we're Blacklist, we've been scrimming this whole week. We've been fairly comfortable with each other. I think I'm exactly what they need. It allows Hayaka and Isako just to play like aggro with each other, look for players while I'm holding their back, communicating to them, you know, telling them, you know, what's safe, like what they can do. And, you know, and I think today showed it.
I want to jump in for the next question here, because one thing that really stood out to me today about how your team was playing was like how good you were at getting into great spots early for a lot of the zones, even when you didn't have like sometimes the best prio to those zones. So talk me through the process of that, who's calling that, and how are you aware of moving around both maps? Because it seemed like both maps you were in great positions all the time.
Well, we all talk about it. When we see the zone, we all talk about it. But initially it's Hayaka. Hayaka had like a very good reading of zones throughout this whole week. He trusted his gut. You know, we've we also, which helped us, was we did like a lot of these zones I played today. We've done it in scrims, so you know we knew exactly what to do. We were confident in our plays. We did it, and I think today just showed the execution right.
And you were able to get into a lot of the final zones. It felt like almost every late game circle you guys were there, but didn't find that victory that eluded you in the end. What do you think you guys have to do next to kind of take yourself to the next level? Because of course, as a new team, there's always going to be hurdles you have to overcome. What is the main focus for you moving forward?
I think together, like moving forward, we just need to just get more reps in, really. We just need to keep playing more like end games together. We need to realize what we're going to be good at, you know, find our weaknesses, then fix them. And moving forward, I think we'll be like very strong. I think it's no matter of time before we'll be honestly like top 3 a lot of games coming forward. So yeah, tomorrow we'll go and show it.
It was, again, I said it at the start, a fantastic performance from you guys today. And I have to say, we on the broadcast are very happy to see you finding success with Blacklist and seeing the way that this is changing the landscape of EMEA, as you guys did jump up several places yet today. You've got a ways to go up until we move to LAN and beyond, but I do want to say best of luck. And as we prepare to let you go, I want to give you the opportunity to speak to the fans that are supporting you now in a different roster, perhaps the Blacklist fans that are welcoming you for the first time. And what would you say to those fans of the game, of yourself, that are looking forward to seeing you at international competition?
Well, I appreciate everyone supporting me. Obviously, like a big shout out to the whole of like Blacklist and my teammates and everything. Big shout out to like as well Passion as well. They're 2 new teammates going to 2 different teams. I hope the best for them too. But for everyone like supporting me and like going forward, and obviously Blacklist and everything, much love, and we'll continue to show you guys why we'll be a top team in the future.
I look forward to it. Thank you, JMW, for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
All right. With that, we have heard quite a bit of what JMW thought. We've seen a lot of the way that JMW and Blacklist were able to navigate the day, but on set, it wasn't the only story of today. We had several big ones. As we come to the conclusion of the EMEA broadcast, what are you walking away from today thinking?
It was a couple of monster games in 5 and 6 that really kind of decided how things looked, right? ExoClan went from nowhere up into a decent placement at the end of things with a 30-point game, which was absolutely ridiculous. And then FA Kids take it home with a monster game in the final one as well. But I think the story for me with EMEA at the moment is we're always going into game 6 not knowing who's going to win. It doesn't feel like there's a huge gap at the top and that anyone with one performance in the final game can really turn it around. So we are set up, especially with a meta shift that's obviously going to be coming as well very, very soon, for a very exciting end to the split. And again, it's very unpredictable about who's going to be making it through to split 2. So you got to keep watching to find out.
It is difficult, near impossible to predict. And Gaskin, I'd echo the sentiment of Onset here that I couldn't have guessed what was going to happen today, but we do have a lot more to look forward to. What specifically really impressed you about today's games?
It was actually in the decision-making of the POI draft. I know I always talk about POI draft because it's new, it's exciting, but the 2 teams at the top were 2 teams who prioritized World's Edge first, despite the fact that World's Edge was the second set of maps there. So confident that they could do something on Storm Point, even with perhaps a lesser POI, but then getting the job done when World's Edge came around. But it's just the differences we're seeing for how people choose their POIs, what POIs people think are better, what they think are worse, which they'd rather have, which they rather wouldn't have. And it makes it very exciting. I mean, it's so difficult to predict because of that reason. And now, as we go forward for future splits and we get to champs, etc., we will learn more about these statistics. But for now, it's very raw. We're still learning. The players are still learning. And that's what makes it so exciting to watch.
And we've still got a lot of Apex Legends to look forward to today. That's what is really getting me, is that yes, we may have just finished our EMEA broadcast, but North America is going to be on in just a few hours. So I'm going to let you 2 go. I'm going to let you rest, because in, what is this, an hour and 35 minutes. I did my math correct, and I shouldn't have done math on broadcast. We'll be coming at you with North American Match Day number 6. Again, Groups B and C and the end of the second round robin in North America. It was difficult to predict EMEA, maybe try your luck in North America, see how many games, see what teams you can get right. Very exciting region and a lot to look forward to. If you're wondering about anything else, be it more interviews, be it more statistics, be it information on the ALGS, you can always follow us at Play Apex Esports, both on X and on YouTube, and honestly, mostly anywhere. I'm going to live with our casters, take a bit of a rest, maybe experiment with some Pathfinder, because I've been seeing a lot of EMEA teams run that, and see if I can get a few more games in. I'll see you guys over in North America in an hour and 35 minutes.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel.